Дорогие коллеги, дорогие друзья, дорогие слушатели, зрители Красноярского экономического форума, наши уважаемые эксперты студии. Мы начинаем нашу, я уверена, чрезвычайно интересную и насыщенную дискуссию, которая посвящена корпоративному образованию в контексте нового времени. Будем разбираться с вами, что у нас за контекст, и самое главное, какие тренды корпоративного обучения мы сейчас можем видеть. Прежде всего, я хотела бы ознакомить вас, уважаемые слушатели, зрители наши, участники, с тем, какие явные тренды мы видим с точки зрения социальных тенденций, с точки зрения тенденций в образовании и с точки зрения, конечно же, корпоративного обучения. От лица нашей профессиональной ассоциации, где мы в течение уже 20 лет исследуем корпоративное образование внутри и снаружи, от лица, в том числе мирового сообщества, это различные корпоративные университеты мира, мы действительно очень много лет
universities of the world. We've been integrated for many years in the activity of such universities. I can say that there are certain trends which are definitely can be seen everywhere, and they have a universal character. First of all, this is a shift of focus in terms of employees from objectivity to subjectivity. What I mean is that in the past, employees were just part of, were seen just as a personnel which should follow certain trajectory, which should acquire certain skills and knowledge, and to project their way fully. And the people themselves, the personnel, usually took very little part in all the decisions which are necessary to take this or that type of education. So now we can see that it doesn't matter which region you live in or which business you are working in, the shift of this focus from objectivity to subjectivity of the person is happening right now. Another huge trend which we see is that over a long period of time we see the formation of business models of universities. We have conducted a huge research which involved a lot of corporate universities as similar structures both in Russia and abroad. And we highlighted from all the possible models three key focuses, strategic focuses of organizations. The first is aimed at education, second transformation, and third aimed at integration. And depending on what is important for business and what is its strategic imperative and the priority of the business, this is what influences on the structure of corporate education, depending on the interests of mother company. Mother company is the one which founded the university. And within the frame of each strategic focus, we can see three other different models. So we can see that nowadays we have 9 corporate models of universities, which we cannot see them clearly, but they exist in this or that way. So what I mean, in the focus of education, this is alternative to classical education, or probably substitution to what university is supposed to be doing. So a lot of corporate universities are creating chairs and departments at universities, creating special personnel to work with them further. They are aimed at managing competences and skills which are always relevant and depending on the business context of the organization. They need to get new managers of new level, of new class, and they talk about the development of leadership in the company. And very often such cooperation happens only together with the leading experts and business schools on the market. And the third focus is aimed at professional education, at the improvement and expanding of specific competences, professional competences. There were the majority of such universities at the beginning of this trend, and in Russia in the 90s it was a time when such structures just started to be found. Talking about the transformation, nowadays a very popular business model is a transformation of yourself of the company and the market around which business is creating. And considering this, we see that corporate education is important not only for the employees of the company, but also for a chain of suppliers, for partners, for any partners and stakeholders who are important for the company, for the organization, and who are becoming important for a corporate university. So through certain changes of the context and of the market, we see that the education is changing to educate this chain who are not its direct employees. But now we used to think that corporate education was only for the employees, but it's wrong. And for this transformation chain, it is very popular to consider such a model when a university, corporate university, becomes a key element of changes. And this is a standard approach of the company to approach different changes of the company, and which takes the competence to the company from the corporate university. And corporate university helps to integrate this new approach and to change the strategy. And also there is a transformation model when a corporate university should help business to tackle the situation of lost guidelines, to find new senses, new business models, and to restart its own business. In this situation, corporate university becomes a think tank, the base of innovative thoughts where scientists, researchers, artistic people, people from creative professions, so people from everywhere, from very different contexts, from partner contexts, to think how business is going to continue its existence. And the third focus is about business models of corporate universities ever, which help to integrate all the knowledge, to manage all the skills of the company, to ensure that the employees and different businesses inside the company are cooperating. All the integration of best practices, so where corporate university is dragging best practices together, taking everything people are doing together, and they make sure that these best practices becomes the standards, and then they promote these standards further. And of course, cultural integration. So very often corporate university can be the integration of different cultures and ideas inside the company. So considering all these models, we see that this is how corporate universities exist and what they do. Of course, there are new trends, and all these models very rarely exist like separately from each other. They very often combined. So, and another big trend which I would like to mention is huge attention to the personality of an employee, to different types of intellect, of thinking, not only IQ and EQ, I mean emotional intellect, but also to the intellect of life quotient, life sustainability, or life intellect, which is important for everybody. But I think that we should talk about different skills, and I think if you're interested, you will read about it. But it's important to remember that we are living in the time of a very fast changing context, and people are very often not ready to face this new context, and they feel kind of fragile and not very secure. And of course, the possibility to manage your own skill, to manage your emotions, and the possibility to understand how you can improve your life sustainability or quotient, and how people around can be more sustainable. This is what we are going to talk about, and what life quotient means. And we also can speak about other big trends, and the most important one which I would like to mention is I'm an ambassador of corporate education, not only because it is important for our businesses, but because it is a very important social phenomenon, because corporate universities and corporate education allows the market to change its priorities, to set the priorities, considering what is important for business and business professions. Corporate universities allow all the market players to change their strategy and to create new educational projects and to look for new formats. These are corporate universities who bridge the gap between the system of education and business, between the needs of different branches at all levels. So that's why we are very happy to move to our discussion, and I hope that our speakers can relate to what I have said and to what we see inside corporate universities. And I'm very happy to meet our speakers who are both here and online. So first of all,
Valentin Satarov, it's Roman Churayevsky, the head of the HR director of the
Оксана Фетисова,
Оксана
директор
Фетисова,
департамента корпоративного
the
университета ПАО
director of the department of the
Леонид Клин,
MTS,
бизнес-лектор,
Leonid Klin,
филолог,
the
автор гуманитарного
philologist
метода
and
по
the author
развитию
of the
soft skills.
humanitarian
И с
method of
нами
development
присутствует
soft skills,
онлайн Роман
and also
Баскин,
online
директор
Roman
корпоративного
Baskin,
университета ОАО РЖД.
the director
Дарья
of
Борисова, заместитель
corporate
генерального
university
директора
of
по
the
управлению
RGD,
персоналом, связям с
and
общественностью и взаимодействию с органами власти ПАО Россети Сибирь.
and from
Татьяна Волкова,
Татьяна
директор
Волкова
департамента по управлению
and
персоналом региональных
director of
активов ПАО «Полюс».
PAO
И Марина
Полюс.
Михаленко,
And
руководитель
Marina
мастерской коучинга
Mihalenko,
в Институте
and
практической
and
психологии
director
при
of the
Высшей школе
coaching
экономики,
of the
эксперт в области корпоративной
Higher School
культуры.
of Economy, and
Коллеги, я
expert
рада
of
вас
the
всех
corporate
приветствовать.
culture. I'm
И
really
хочу начать
glad
нашу
to welcome
дискуссию
you
с
all today, and I
одного
would like
общего
to start
вопроса,
our
который мне
discussion
хотелось бы
from the common
адресовать
question. I would like to
абсолютно
address this
всем нашим
question to all
спикерам,
our
потому
speakers
что вы внутри
because we are
корпоративных
you're
контекстов, а
inside
также
into
как
the
эксперты
corporate
рынка,
context and you expert of the
видите
markets. You can
тренды,
see the new
появление
trends
чего-то нового,
when we
что мы,
something
может быть,
new emerging
видим
and
каждый со
appearing.
своей
So
стороны.
we see
И
from our
я
own
хотела бы
angle. I would
задать
like
всем
to
нашим
ask
спикерам один
one
вопрос, на
question.
который
I would
прошу
like to, and I
отвечать
would like
в
just
пределах
to
5 минут.
just to
Какие
answer within
тренды вы
the 5
видите в
minutes.
корпоративном
So what kind
обучении
of
в этом
trends
году
can you
и
see
какие
in a
новые
new year,
форматы,
and what are new
аудитории и
formats are
бизнес-контексты
appearing, and the
появляются
business
именно
context are
сейчас?
now growing
Я хотела бы
as a
начать
trend. I would
наше
like to start,
вот такое, я бы сказала, волеизъявление
I'd like
и
just to
показ
speak
тех
about,
практик, которые
just to
есть
show us the
сейчас
practices
в
which really
корпоративном
exist in our
образовании
corporate
с нашего спикера,
education
который
from our
присоединился
speakers who
онлайн,
has just
с Романа
joined us
Баскина.
online from
Мне
the
очень
Roman Baskin.
важно, и как и
And it's
нашим
very important
участникам
for
понять,
us just
что вы
to
видите
understand
внутри
what can
такой
you
отрасли
see in
огромной,
such
как
kind of
российские
sphere,
железные дороги.
from such
Какие
kind
вы
of
видите
huge
сейчас
area of business
влияние
sector of business
бизнес-контекста
at
на
Russian
корпоративный
railways,
университет,
and how
который по
the
праву считается
new
признанным
trends
лидером в
actually
корпоративном
affect
обучении и в России, и даже за рубежом.
over there. So what is the
И
kind of
какие
trend,
свежие
and
тренды
what
вы
kind of
можете
new
наблюдать?
trends you can
Пожалуйста, Роман.
experience now and see now. Roman, you're welcome.
Спасибо,
Thank you very much, Olga.
Здравствуйте,
I
уважаемые
would like
коллеги,
just to greet all of you,
уважаемые
my dear
участники
colleagues,
форума.
all
Прям
the
кратко,
participants of the forum. I would
2
like to be
секунды про нас.
short.
Нам 12
Just 2
лет.
seconds
Мы
about us. We
создавались в
have been,
РЖД как внутренняя бизнес-школа.
we are now
Это
12
очень
years.
важно
It's like
понимать,
an
потому что
internal
все, что
business school
связано
within
с
the
soft
Russian railways.
skills,
So
все, что связано с корпоративной
everything is
культурой,
connected with the
стратегией,
corporate culture,
бизнес-обучением,
with the soft skills, all
подготовкой
just
кадрового
connected with the
резерва,
business skills,
корпоративной
and
культурой.
how
Это
just
у
to
нас.
prepare
Все
new personnel,
остальное
new
так
staff.
исторически
So
сложилось
that is
в
like
9
historical and
железнодорожных
traditional
классических
in
вузах,
the
более чем
9
70 учебных
corporate
центрах и
railway
техникумах и колледжах,
educations
поэтому мы
in
вот
the
такая
college,
классическая
in the
бизнес-школа.
centers.
В
We are kind of a
компании
classic
миллион
business school,
человек в холдинге
just
РЖД.
about 1 million people
Наша
actually
целевая аудитория
within the
порядка 100 тысяч
Russian railways.
руководителей
So
всех уровней
100
и кандидатов
people
на эти
as the
позиции.
managers
Вот,
within
собственно,
our
краткая
company.
визитка. Нас
So
200
that is
человек
like
в
a short
корпоративном университете. У нас
information
свой
about
преподавательский,
we have
методический и
own
оценочный
experts,
состав,
own
те, кто проводит оценку.
instructors and experts
200
which
программ
really
совершенно
assess
разных
our
форматов и
programs, about 200 different
Цифры
programs actually we
такие.
have.
115 тысяч
So
в прошлом году мы выпустили
115,000
человек, ну, как мы
people
говорим,
who
человека
graduated
программ, потому
last
что
year.
некоторые руководители по
So
2 программы проходят в год.
several
15 тысяч
managers they
очно,
actually
face-to-face,
actually consider
что-то с
it
применением
more than 2
дистанционных
programs.
технологий,
So we also use
что-то,
some distant
естественно, в аудитории.
technologies, just something
Несколько
we're going
тысяч
just
все-таки удалось
offline
вывести в
classes,
аудиторию.
online
Из трендов
classes.
и наблюдений,
So
которые
if we
мы
speak
видим.
about the
Первое.
new trends, the
Мы
first
все
one,
наелись
which is meant,
онлайном, и
so
мы
we are
наверняка
kind
и
of
поняли,
fed
что
up with online
онлайн
to a certain
пригоден
extent.
для
So
получения
definitely
некоторых
we may
знаний,
use
скорее
online just to
теоретических,
get certain
и он
knowledge,
работает,
and it
он
works to a
почти не
certain
пригоден
extent.
для
But
продвижения
unfortunately,
корпоративной
we
культуры, для
can't use it that
командообразования и для главной функции
successfully
корпоративного
just
университета
to
знакомить
promote
людей,
business
учить
culture
их
in order just
коммуницировать,
to how
учить
to
видеть
make
внешнюю
people
среду.
communicate,
Ну
how
и вот
to
все, что
be
с
able
этим
to
связано, поэтому,
socialize.
конечно, мы
So
понимаем, что
which
оттуда
we,
надо уходить
it's
как
clear
можно
for
быстрее.
us, we need just to
Тренд
work more
номер
offline
2,
rather than
который мы
online.
видим
And
особенно
trend number
сейчас.
2, which we
Корпоративный
can witness,
университет
we are
как
witnessing just
борец
now.
со стрессом
So that is a
руководителей
kind
тоже
of
очень
how
важен,
just to
поэтому
cope
нужно
with the stress,
больше
which is
тепла
which got
внедрить в
common for the
аудиторию даже в онлайне
managers.
и
So even just
людей
better
как-то
just
вот
to
отвлекать от
socialize,
проблем
just
производственных,
to
ковидных и всяких разных
to
прочих.
show more
Следующий важный
cordial,
тренд,
I
который
suppose,
мы
feelings and emotions.
обнаружили,
The next
мы
trend which we
всегда
actually
настаивали на том, что
discovered to
мы работаем
explore.
в области
All the time we
soft
insisted
skills,
we work
и только
in a
экономическая,
soft skills,
управленческая и
and not
гуманитарная
only
тематика у нас,
not only
но
about
пошел запрос от
economy,
бизнеса, от компании
humanitarian
«Российские железные
teams,
дороги,
but also there was a kind of
связанный
question,
с
a
более
kind of
профессиональной
demand, which is
окраской
connected
управленческих
with
компетенций. Это не совсем
just to have
профессиональная
new
переподготовка,
management competences,
повышение
which is now
квалификации, но все-таки мы делаем теперь
going
программы
to be a
для
huge
определенных
positive
функциональных
facet.
вертикалей нашей
So we're
компании,
going just to
которая,
speak how
например,
to develop it
изучает вопросы
in
управления
a
строительным
vertical,
комплексом
how
или
just to
управления
develop
локомотивным
and how
комплексом.
just to
Это
learn
новая,
how
очень
to
интересная
manage
задача.
different
Еще одна важная
complexes And one is more important story. It's how to involvement into the corporate universities other employees, our clients. So we can like one desk, one culture. So just to how to involve, how to engage new people, in particular our clients in our corporate culture and our corporate education. So we're going just to behave differently if we know how to do it properly. And now it's very complicated 2021 year in terms of COVID pandemic. So we need just to work with a SUE company. And when the representatives of the coal industries, they sit together as a roundtable discussion with the representatives of the railway industries. So they are going, they communicate, they just make up a kind of friendly relations. So that is one important or essential topic to discuss. So we try just to work more closely with, the branches within the country. So we need just to open a new branch in the Far East, and we quite actively work with our railways, colleges and university, just to work a kind of within the railway franchising. And so we also they can work with our standardized programs. So that is all about what I wanted to say about the new trends. Roman, thank you very much. So is it so the first focus, am I right to say? So focus, so that is the one context of the management and the education. So it's mostly with the focus on the professional trend and professional focus. So it's not only the new trend, it's the regionalization and the new context. So that is a kind of a fashionable now, or a new fashion, just to do something within the regions, but to create within the region, which so that's why we need just to create something to satisfy not only regional, I suppose, demands, but also in Moscow as well. So it's important very well just to say, just to comment in what kind of cases do we need something to do something in regionals, and in what cases can be replicated and just to disseminate it within the Russia. And so how can we apply it to cross-regional, cross-companies formats? So we're going just to work together, just to collaborate together, just to make a like kind of common context, to sit with your partner on, at the one desk. So I have a question about regional branches. So perhaps our listeners may have a kind of an illusion. So is it a new trend just to make a new regional branches and to open a new regional or to launch new regional branches? So it's absolutely right question. So we have been working through such kind of route. We have started it from, we have been working in such kind of direction since 2016. So we have about 16 branches within every railway station. Some completely different reason we have just to pursue such kind of new regional policy. First of all, we have some peculiarities within the certain regions. Of course, we need just to think about how just to transport and transfer these kind of people within the country. So of course, that is a franchising. We have opened new colleges, new education franchising in order just to promote our programs, our corporate culture. So from the 7 out of from 6 or out of 9 of our corporate universities, we have our own pedagogical staff, which is actually trained, and they actually teach all our graduates, our students, all different management, not only top-level management, but like average management staff, in order just to get the certain education, possible prospective managers who perhaps will sooner become new managers, and only. So it's not a kind of a branch like a filial. So it's very expensive, and it's difficult to create a new branch.
Байкало-Амурская
of
магистраль.
course,
И там
we think about the
помимо
Transsib and
в рамках всех тех огромных
Railway.
мероприятий
So
федеральных и
within
нашей
framework of
компании
the
вот в этом
great
регионе, мы, конечно,
Russian,
поняли, что нам
so
необходимо
we understood what is
опережающее
very
развитие
clear
руководителей
for us. We need
на
just to think,
Востоке,
just to
там на месте, не
train
только
our new
и не столько для
managers
того,
and
чтобы
just to
сократить
have
командировочные расходы, это не
our
такая уж
experts,
великая
our top managers in the
задача,
Far
а для
East.
того, чтобы
So in order
мы
just
успели
to
вот эту огромную
have
аудиторию
enough time
подготовить
to
к
prepare management,
реализации,
just
к
to
организации
implement
перевозок,
new program, new
когда
managers,
это
in order
станет
just to provide
вот реальностью, эти проекты будут закончены.
effective
И, конечно,
transportation.
это
So, and
привлечение
we
людей, руководителей
should
на
be
Дальний Восток.
absolutely
Как мы
ready
это сделали?
just to attract people,
Мы,
to attract more people to Far
во-первых,
East.
локация,
First of all,
Владивосток.
location. We speak about location.
Город
Location is
необычный, город
Vladivostok.
интересный,
It's an
город, в который
extremely
мечтают
incredible
попасть многие
city.
жители
Many people perhaps would
Центральной
like
России
just
хотя
to
бы раз в
see
жизни
from
туда
the
добраться.
central of Russia,
Остров
just to
Русский,
see it.
замечательное,
The island
красивое
of
место,
Ruski, which is
и это
magnificent place.
находится все-таки близко
So
к
that is
таким
very
масштабным
quite
проектам,
close.
логистическим,
There's such a
транспортным,
large-scale
производственным, тоже было
programs
очень важно.
like
И
industrial
самое главное, что
complexes,
вот
which is very close to
задачу
such
нам помогал это
Russian.
решить, естественно, наш генеральный
And
директор,
so
потому что
our
это
general
надо
director
было решать на очень
actually
высоких
helped us
уровнях.
just to solve these kind of issues
Схема
successfully.
сотрудничества с
So we have a
Дальневосточным федеральным
certain
университетом.
scheme just how
очень
to
необычная,
communicate
она
and to
очень
collaborate
интересная,
with the
и она
Far
очень,
East
как нам кажется,
University,
эффективная,
and it's quite
потому что
effective, I
это не
believe.
за деньги,
So that is not only
это не
because
за
of
интерес,
money,
это за
it's not
идею.
only, so that is
Это
kind
не
of about the
арендованный
common
угол или
idea. So we
арендованная
are not going
аудитория в
to
ДВФУ.
rent a kind
Это
of a university or premises.
связанное с
It's a
тем, что
collaboration, a
мы
cooperation which
вместе,
is
мы
quite
своим
strictly
педагогическим
closed.
составом, они своим
So
педагогическим
we are
составом
going to
проводим
communicate
на
with
их
our
площадке
pedagogical
в
staff
кампусе,
and
в
their
замечательном,
pedagogical staff.
красивом
We
нашей
collaborate
программы
within
корпоративного
their
университета,
campus
но
and just we
участие
launch
ДВФУ, конечно
their
же, позволяет
programs.
их
And of
экспертизой
course, we
окрашивать их в
use their
региональные
experts
оттенки.
just
Это очень
to
важно, но самое
take into
главное было
account
то,
some
чтобы
peculiarities
создать
of a certain
для наших
region,
слушателей,
in particular
руководителей,
in
а
Far
среди них
East.
огромное количество
So we have
молодежи,
lots of
ощущение, что они попали вот в эту сказку
students, lots of
кампуса
experts, and we are like
ДВФУ на острове Русский.
all
Они
together,
ходят
we
по тем
sing
же
together
коридорам, учатся в
on
тех же
the Ruski
аудиториях,
Island.
едят в тех же
We
студенческих
study,
кафешках, живут
they
в тех
go
же
to
общежитиях,
canteen with the
гостиницах.
common
И
students,
это
they
совсем
visit
другая
the same
атмосфера, которая,
places, we
конечно,
live
им
in the
позволяет
same hotels.
оторваться
And a
от
certain atmosphere will help them just
своих
to feel
производственных задач
the
и вот
atmosphere and the
почувствовать
same time
всю вот ту вот привилегированность
like
руководителей Дальнего Востока. Ну,
to
естественно,
become a
вот
kind of a
такая
privilege
красота
to be
мы
a
в
part
Москве,
of the
конечно, себе не
Far
можем
East.
позволить
So we can't
вот такой
afford it
роскоши.
in
И
Moscow,
получилась интересная
such
штука,
kind of
я заканчиваю, конечно
involvement
же,
into the
что
process.
мы ставили перед собой
So
задачу
we
учить
have a
здесь
certain
руководителей
goal. We
наших дорог
would like just
Красноярской,
to
Восточно-Сибирской,
teach
Забайкальской, Дальневосточной. Мы
new
это делаем.
experts,
Мы
new
за полгода
management
1400
in
человек
terms of
обучили
the
в наших
railway
аудиториях,
experts. More than
которые
1,000 people have been
вместе
already
с ДВФУ
taught
используем для этих программ. Но огромный интерес появился
so a great
у тех,
interest now
кто работает в
appeared.
центре России
So
и в
in
Москве.
those people
И
who
оказывается,
work
что
in
вот
the
такой
center of
формат,
Russia and
он
in
очень
Moscow,
важен
and they
не
can
только
also
для
be
тех, кто живет на
interested
Дальнем
in
Востоке,
such
а
kind
тех,
of
кто занимается
process.
стратегическими
And so they
проектами здесь,
move
в
in
Москве,
particular who
но
work
ни
on the
разу их не
strategic
видел,
program in
не трогал
Moscow.
руками.
But
И
they have
поэтому
never
наш
actually
выездной
experienced it.
модуль
And
нашего
that's kind
MBA
of a
корпоративного, который
new
мы
MBA, which we
когда-то
actually
проводили в
corporate
Испании, мы,
MBA. We
конечно же,
used to have
перенесли
it in
в
Spain.
экзотику
Now we are
Дальнего
just
Востока,
transferred
окрасили в
into
такой
the
наш
Far
железнодорожный
East, and now we
цвет. Мы
have a
компания
kind of a new
производственная,
railway
но
trend, and we can
кроме
feel
учебы
it in
в замечательном
Far
кампусе
East.
ДВФУ,
So
объехать весь Дальний
except
Восток, посетить
the
все
only
крупнейшие
studying
порты,
and teaching
логистические
within the
центры, но это просто
Ruski
какая-то
Island
вот
and
образовательная
Far
сказка,
East
поэтому
University, you have a
рекомендуем, если у
possibility
компании есть
just to
мощный конкретный
explore
проект
Far
под
East.
конкретные
I
цели, такие
also
филиалы создавать.
I recommend just to
В других
create
случаях
such
этого
kind of
делать не следует.
branches,
Спасибо большое.
okay, within the country.
Спасибо большое, Роман.
Thank you very much, Roman. Yes, we are really impressed by your educational fairy tale, and now we are going to continue talking about the trends which we have in corporate universities of other companies and other corporate frameworks. And now we would like to draw your attention to a very different business, a very different corporate framework, but a corporate university which I think deserves to be the first prize and to be acknowledged not only in Russia but also around the world. This is company MTS, the corporate university of MTS, and I'm asking Oksana Fetisova. Oksana, for you, in your different framework, in your different business, what trends or which new auditoriums and new formats are relevant? Thank you very much, Olga, for the question. And that was an important important bit about your business and your framework. And I should mention the peculiarity of our university, which I'm heading. We are 3 top companies which are actively developing in the strategy of ecosystem. This is a model which presupposes a very tight cooperation of different businesses. And I guess it is not there is anything new for you that MTS is more than just telecom and communication. We provide a lot of digital services, starting from media, business, online, cinema, and finishing with IT solutions for big data. And talking about our responsibilities as university, we are definitely working with very different cultures, with very different structures, with our own subculture, our peculiarity. And the task of university is to try and create such products and solutions which will satisfy the needs of a huge megapolis, where we have classical business and small businesses. And the trends that we see, I tried to show them on the picture which you are going to see on the screen. And so the first and the most important for me is how very different frameworks cooperate on mediatainment, edutainment, when you cannot understand the difference between educating thing and where it is about entertaining a user learning an interesting text which is part of education. And such formats, such frameworks exist both in macro and micro forms, and I see that all our experiences which presuppose using micro formats, they show very good results considering the satisfaction of our clients and considering the users who need online services. So I very often make joke about the fact that during the crisis we send the links to different courses, but it's a big question how many of them you actually physically open. And in terms of that, any micro content is a real savior. So if you can reach your user using just a couple of words, 2 paragraphs, and show in them why they should find this or that course useful, I definitely see that this is something we should do, and it is essential, and it works for us. Another trend, this is about partnerships. Some years ago, like 3 or 5 years ago, a corporate university was used to close names of big companies, and now the situation is absolutely different. So nowadays we are not closing the names of Praise Education or Centers Education. We were using the brand of the program. We used the brand as a headliner to promote the program, and we saw that it was important for the clients, and they were happy to see that we were cooperating, that we were inviting the experts, and because of that the course was much more popular, and the employees were much more satisfied. And the flip side of this is the attitude inside partnership. And previously, when we were ordering the program, we didn't develop our relationships, but nowadays we're working together, and we should let the partners go deeply into the framework, into the context, because the corporate education is the one that considers the needs of business, and it must be customized. And if the partner doesn't understand the needs of business, they won't be able to produce the content that would be useful for the staff. And another one is a life learning trend. It means that we shouldn't be studying non-stop, taking different distant courses. We, as training development, we should consider the path of the user and how they are going to cover this way on the way. And we must understand the questions they might face while studying, and we want to make them stumble and trip over. We don't want them to trip over, so he applies for a course, and inside this platform he will get a link to the course which will teach him effectively online. So they do not have to send the news on the platform or send the emails. So the user will just see that there is something that can be easily applicable to him. And we can get such a result only if we approach the user's needs only very closely, understanding what kind of contact we use. Considering the course which is supporting this lifelong learning philosophy, like a course Learn to Study, And this works like subscription, so you don't have to join a platform. You just have to track the link from your email, watch a video, do a task, and get some very useful materials. Oksana, thank you very much. Here, I guess we can highlight three key trends: is like integration of a systematic approach of all the services and opportunities in the education that we have, and considering the way of the user, this integration should take place. And this just proves what Roman mentioned earlier, that there is a big interest to partnership programs, to partnership nets, and on the whole, I think that this is just a new trend which just starts growing, especially in terms of corporate education. And talking about micro-learning, I absolutely agree with you. There are a lot of different formats and content, but people are just tired or just don't know how to use it. So if we can do it effectively, efficiently, and in a fun way for them, then the emotional atmosphere which Roman mentioned would be very different, and people would be really satisfied with this one. So this is something we should consider, and this must provoke some positive emotions, and this is another very important trend. Oksana, thank you very much. We will come back later with more details on some questions. And now I would like to talk to our online speakers, so we will be letting them in turns. And now I would like to ask Daria Borisova, who is represented not only the most powerful structure known, I guess, absolutely to everybody in Russia, that is Rosseti. These are electrical nets which let us get electricity all over the country. But also Daria is in a regional context, because this is Rosseti Siberia, which is very important for our forum, and for the regional context which we have started to deal in. Daria, what about you? What kind of trends do you see, and what new phenomena do you see in terms of business context, business framework, in terms of format, and new groups of employees?
Good afternoon, my dear colleagues. Thank you very much, Olga, for the words, and thank you very much for the new trends that you have been actually covered at the beginning of our conference. So that is a new trends, absolutely urgent trends. So that is a new human demands, which they are prioritized now in context between the relations about employer and employee. I would like to add perhaps the main reason because it's kind of strictly connected with the new trends, and if you go beyond the framework of the corporate education, one of the global trends, which is like a high competitiveness of the companies on the work market. So, and the reason I suppose it's connected with the geographical mobilities and the low unemployment rate, and perhaps it is connected. That is a kind of due to the pandemic, we have the opportunity just to work online, and there is just a kind of a high competitiveness of the companies on the job market. So there is a new paradigm actually appears between the company and an employee, and now employee actually agrees to work within this certain company, and due to that, the new system of the management of the personnel is a new form of the new trend of the new manager who is ready just to satisfy the demands and needs of the employee. According to the survey which was held in 2020, we have found out surprisingly to us, so opportunity just to give the opportunities to have a kind of new training. So that is a great asset for the employee, and it's just it's the same as we speak about the satisfaction, also about their workplace, I suppose, and also security in terms of their salary. So there's a possibility just to get promoted, just to have new training. That is a kind of strictly beneficial for any employee and gives them the edge, and it's a kind of a basic need for our employees. So we try to do our best to solve this kind of issue to go. We have launched a new new trainings for the corporate education, which were aimed at their management staff. Also, it's a kind of a series of the one-day trainings, which is aimed to develop our soft skills some skills, some management, personal, soft skills development. They're more or less they're identical, I suppose, within all the companies. We have actually launched a new approach. Just so the first trend, the first approach, we haven't actually created kind of timetables for how just to get this kind of education. So we gave our employees a chance just to choose when and how, just to choose a certain program or training. When we just launched such kind of practice, it took only 1 or 2 days just to subscribe to such kind of program. But after just in 2 or 3 days, and then it took only 30 minutes just to make a kind of a group for so that is an easy life hack. They were like they have cycles, and they were kind of a repetition of such kind of course, and the employee can get when and how just to join such kind of course and just to attend a certain course. Also, there is a possibility for the employee just to attend all 5 courses if he or she feels a certain needs. And also there's opportunity just not to attend any classes or to attend all of them, and accept all the opportunity just to give such kind of independence, just to choose what kind of course to prioritize and to develop certain competences. So it resulted in a certain just the ability to develop soft skills and will allow us just to solve the different problems in terms of just how just to increase the level of involvement into the company, the affairs, and the loyalty to our company. Even the employees who were not that fully involved into our corporate culture, and they witness how their colleagues who have already passed or attended all the courses, and they were so enthusiastic about it, and that was the reason why the employees who were not motivated that much, and they feel that like helps them just to make a new culture, to create a new culture. It's not a kind of a policy of a stick and carrot policy. It's now a policy, a kind of which the employees can see a real benefits for them, that it can give them a competitive edge. It will help them to advance their competence and just to be able to solve difficult but challenging different issues, and will help just to solve different problems. Thank you very much, Tanya. You have just already answered the question which I wanted just actually ask. But if you want just to summarize, we are able to say that the corporate universities, that on behalf of their businesses, they are kind of a new mediators and experts. When they just form a new they create a new employees, kind of a new Z generation, a different generation of the youngsters, which form a new culture, not only for themselves, but for the older generation. Of course, it is absolutely vital and a precious thing that the companies create such kind of opportunities, and as an organization, we actually may provide and offer our employees as a growth for the development, for education, and that is a kind of a new dominant motivation. Now we are going just to come back to our studio, to Roman Churaevsky. It's a completely business, it's a new business, different business, and when we speak about the regionalization and the situation with the Nornickel, it's a very close link between the region and the link, and of course we have judged new approaches and new methods, as far as we have already actually listened to what are the new trends. So what kind of new trends you're going to share with us? Thank you very much, Olga. I have been listening quite attentively, my colleagues, and I can feel any kind of contradiction. I would like to start with a quotation or citation. I actually joined our forum and heard our governor. The successful city is a city where we have an airport and a university, or that is there. We need just to think and to remember that is the educational center. It's a part of culture, and when they speak about the trends, which is connected with the education, with the training. So all the speakers actually focused on the speed of such kind of progress. And when we asked about, do we need a kind of a new branch to open a new branch? It depends. So that is a kind of a contradiction we can see, because education, we can see the result of education only in 10 or 20 years. So it's in the long-term perspective. So of course it's not that easy to find the managers who can find their answers, what is going just to do. But I'm really sorry just to admit and just to say to my colleagues, so it's not a right time, and it is late to teach some people how to react and how to. And the second trend I would like to share and to speak about. So that is the way and the root of the employee. So we have a kind of a focus on personalization, just to make it like a self-centered. But also at the same time, we need just to forget about with a corporate education, and we need to take into account business first of all. So we need just to combine and to solve this issue effectively, the relations. And the main trend now, it's a way how we may do it, how about the speed of the process, how fast is the process, and within the context, we need just to how to make business, how to run business effectively, and of course, so how to provide our business with certain resources, in particular human resources, and take into the consideration all these factors. And as a university, we have been experiencing lots of stages, and of course we just try just to help a kind of assessment. And of course the business actually has seen and has actually acknowledged the importance of such kind of programs, programs of the development and the corporate interaction between the education and business. And of course we know the kind of a program which is going just to work together in business and education, and the collaboration between business and education. Of course there is a kind of level of uncertainty and ambiguity, and sometimes we need to understand we will able just to provide professionals if we take into account, if we admit that we need to react fast.
Thank you very much, Romana. I think you highlighted a very important ways for like the system and advanced training, and on the other hand, the super fast reacting to everything which is happening, and proactivity, like is to anticipate what should be done right now and right here. On the one hand, it's a very fast training for the adults, which is also very efficient and pragmatic, and on the other hand, we should understand the basement which it is built on, and here we consider such an important thing to as how to choose the trainers, how to choose people who are studying, because if we have a very good and solid foundation, then it is easy to add microlearning to everything, because people know that if they are in the future, then everything is in the future. It doesn't matter which context is going to be in the future. In Nordnikel we call it architecture. Thank you very much, Roman. That's great. And traditionally we are moving to our online speakers, and now we're going to talk about with Tatiana Volkova. We have said a lot, Tatiana, and in your opinion, what from what we have said you can relate to, and what is absolutely new you can see in your corporate framework. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm representing company Polis. This is one of the biggest companies which deals with gold mining, and I would like to tell you about our practice. All the colleagues and Daria have already mentioned that we have to react to the growing demand on the human market, on the labor market, and Roman has just mentioned advanced training, which means that we should get ready for everything that already happened yesterday, and this is what we have also come to. And now we have created a special special department, special program which deals with advanced training to cover our basic needs in professional workers, because we have because we deal with investment activity, we work with the development of new assets, so we should be ready for everything. So when we realize that when there's growing demand for the production laborers exists and we might be left behind, that we decided that we are going to deal with that ourselves, and we will create a special program and we will be developing this as a professional activity to cover our growing demand for the workers inside the company itself. So what we did, we created a special training center, but this is not a classical training center, like just a typical educational center which used to be in the past, but this is very different actually. This is a center which trains the personnel or business assets, considering advanced training to be ready for everything in the future, to any needs that might pop up in this or that business or in this or that asset, or when we just create a new asset. So also for that we created a unique educational program, we created a unique educational product which can consist of very different variations, because it's very flexible and it reacts to these or those needs, these are those business challenges, whether it is extra education or new education, doesn't matter. Getting into this training center, which is designed for new personnel, so it doesn't work with employees who are already in the business, but it is designed for new ones who have just come into this business. And even though we decided on the strategy for ourselves to choose people with low requirements for their qualifications, but we will be placing them in the center and taking them through certain adaptational programs, designed specifically for the business, for the structure of our business and for the needs of our business, considering their qualifications. And then after 3 or 4 months, we will get an absolutely perfect, loyal corporate employees and fully qualified, who also who have some practical experience and who are ready for some independent work. And we do not make business departments deal with them, because we have special time and resources in this training center to deal with all the candidates entering our company, to get adapted to what they're going to do in the future and to reach that level of qualification which will fully satisfy our production services. And so, thanks to this proactive position, when we need to launch the asset, or when we need to modernize the asset, we already have ready-made candidates who enter this activity, enter the business, and can continue this activity without waiting, without spending time on looking for well-qualified candidates. So it influences our development, our investment activity, and using this tool we satisfy we cover all the lacks, we make up for the lack of professional labor that we nowadays have on the labor market. So I guess this is a case which hasn't been mentioned yet by the colleagues. This is a very applicable tool and applicable department in our university. Tatiana, thank you very much. I think that irrelevant of the context of the framework of the business, we are all talking about the necessity of pragmatics in the education and the response to the challenges of business. Because if a corporate university cannot do that, then it is not necessary. And talking about your framework, thank you very much for drawing our attention to the importance of such demand on labor market as highly qualified employees, especially in the framework necessary for the business, which is very often connected with regional context. And I know myself, even though we are not mentioning that, this is a super sustainable trend for a huge amount of different companies, and the huge deficit of highly qualified employees still exists, especially in some regions, to find a certain person. Yeah, it's not like you are developing this person yourself, or you're training this person yourself. They just do not exist, and you really have to bring such a person up. And it's really great that you are considering a model with developing such competences and skills which company creates inside and releases such a candidate into the world, into the labor market. And I think that this is a new model of using new practices and new approaches which you do not only for yourself but also for the market. So you created a place of maximum deep adaptation and helping people to focus on the business, to make them part of your corporate body. And I think it's not relevant only for gold mining companies, but also for all companies dealing with mining resources and for other companies as well. And I think that they will just join you and will continue borrowing such practices. And this is a huge trend for a company to create and adapt onboarding for themselves. Thank you very much, and we're ready to continue. We're coming back to our studio, to Valentina Satarova. And NMLK, I think that you can agree with many of the speakers, considering the framework, because they must be very similar. The challenges must be similar. And I think that the topic of sustainable cooperation with the region is relevant for you. So I think that you have a lot around as well. So coming back to what has already been said, what's new can you add considering your framework?
Thank you very much. I would like just to join all the speakers. And NMLK is an international company, and we are leading in the sector in Russia, and we are within the 20 best metallurgical companies in the world. And so first of all, I would like just to speak about the trend. I would like just to focus and to highlight something precious which haven't been actually discussed so far. So how just we choose a business model? There is a new trend with the education, training and development. It is concentrated not only on the certain competence or single competence. So there is a one company, one competence, one program. No, it's not in a such kind of a. Now this kind of education is focused on the business and what kind of goals are set by business. So in NMLK, we are very closely connected what is our company actually is doing. So all the time NMLK, all the time actually fulfill all the obligation. And there are two instruments which we have. I would like just to tell. So how do we support and do on the focus on the business goals? So first of all, the business model which we use, we choose such kind of model 6 years ago, and this is quite successful model. The first peculiarity with our educational decision, we create inside, internal, with the help of our managers, with the best managers, and with the people, with the employees. So we use such kind of ideas. It's not only just 2 hours lectures. We launched different programs. We use interactive games, training, simulation games. So even if we have some programs online, we have created social programs, all the kind of programs, how just to protect people from the viruses, taking into the account all the situation in terms of pandemic. So all these people, they are not professional experts or trainers or instructors, but they work within the company every day. Every day they communicate with the people. It's impossible just to lie to them because they are colleagues which you work with them every day, shoulder to shoulder. So that's managers, 6 managers, they didn't plan just to become trainers, internal trainers, and we were able just to prepare them. We actually created a pool of competences, and we were ready just to train, to bring it up. It's not only the preparation of experts for the market. So they don't have that much time. And in particular, if we speak about managers, about middle, for example, management staff, we have lack of time, and definitely we need just to prepare them with a lack of time, with a shortage of time. And of course, they are ready just to be prepared effectively, efficiently, and rapidly, quite fastly. So we are going just to help them, just to help our experts and our instructors. And the second instrument which we use, and how just do we assess the effectiveness of our processes and educational results which we achieved and decision we made. So we are glad just, and we are delighted and we are pleased how this kind of decisions are being implemented. So we've completed the education training. What is the aim for such kind of it? How can we actually prove that this education and training is effective? I can't say that we fully solve these methodology problems, but of course we have certain criteria which can help us to understand are we going to the right direction. We know with the kind of we use the kind of a model that our model is a working model, is the instrument which actually works the different levels, where we go, in the direction we go, just to make our programs more effective, more efficient. We are able just to foresee what is going to be happen next. Thank you very much, Valentina. If you have a chance just to speak more about this a bit later, if you have enough time, how just to work this model of Kilpatrick's models to work this effective and just to make it more comprehensible for all people in terms of the trends, all the friends who are just listening to us. So corporate university was able just to use his own competences. So now we're able just to make it more effective, more interesting and effective for all the universities. More about the 30% of the education, as actually it is still external education. So we need to think how to develop, how just to go to the certain trends. We don't go into the extremes. So of course we need just to actually use different resources and to apply different specialists and experts. Now we're going to switch a bit to another part of our discussion. So of course within the context and new trends, the corporate business universities have expressed their opinions. But we have an expert who can work quite closely with the corporate education. But we have, and Maria Mikhailenko would like to address and to ask a question. I would like just to share your opinion just shortly, what you have just heard, the information our expert shared with us today. What could you tell us about the new trends which you can see and witness, and the expert from the external market? Thank you very much for the opportunity just to express my opinion. If I were only the head of the coaching, of course I teach MBA programs within the leading university of our countries, and I work quite also with the consultations in terms of education and also how just to make process more effective. What I would like just to say, what I've heard what I've heard actually confirmed my idea, what is the most important and what is the most important trend now in corporate education. And now I'm actually see it in my education, and the new trend is the following. So the new trend is a combination of the scientific knowledge and the competence of the leading experts and instructors and professors of the country, and of course those who, like real, not only experts, but who use like a practical experience and just to apply this practice and practical knowledge into the program. But quite often students and they don't know how to apply theoretical knowledge in their practical life, in their practical, for example, businesses. So of course business now, we have a kind of demand to see new business practices. People in particular who work as the top managers within the foreign companies, our companies, and they started working as the consultants, as the business experts, and they know how just to actually teach more effectively. Of course, we should dwell on the fact that the youngsters who actually join companies, and of course new employees, new professionals, young professionals, they would like to see their future, and they are going just to see how they're going to get ahead in their career, and how they are going just to do their work more successfully, more efficiently. And indeed, such kind of programs, they are well balanced, and if we know how to do with them, they are like a new trend, and we are like an external consultants and advisors. We work with such kind of programs, we create such kind of programs, employ them, and of course the progress and the training depends on the companies, and there is a policy that with the new experts which have been trained specifically for the certain, I suppose, direction, and this kind of trained, qualified person can bring a lot of it to the table. And I work quite closely with the corporate universities, and I follow the model of ARCAR. So first we make people, we create people, we inform people how to create, why do we need to learn, why do you need to study, and then we make a kind of, so people understand why do they need it, then they actually get such kind of knowledge. Then there is a kind of a person, there is like self-testing, am I capable just to use and to implement this knowledge which I actually received. So when we come to the corporate universities and we create MBA programs within the corporate universities, so I'm going just to say a few words how this kind of trend is working at the moment, and then we have kind of a post-training courses, and we see how the trainees apply such kind of knowledge effectively, practically. Just we not only just to discuss and just to offer kind of new challenging, appealing topics to discuss, but also just to create their like a kind of mini MBA, just to create a complex education without no interruption. Just to the person can come just to be and our specialists give a certain assistance, render assistance, and this person can see, can witness that, can see how his education, how his qualifications advancing. So of course you need to be self-conscious, and people need to be self-conscious and understand what kind of I suppose what kind of skills are essential for them. Of course we need to speak about the corporate entrepreneurship, a kind of business practices, so we can so when new employees can see new opportunities for business. So ability to develop critical thinking, to be just to, we would like just to have such kind of employees which should be able to apply the knowledge, to be self-motivated, and of course we need just to dwell on the fact that of course just the creation of the professional communities is like a new trend. So when we within the organization, a company, create a certain club when you can just actually collaborate together, when you can be helped or assisted. That such kind of club can, such kind of community can help people to understand that they are with a certain corporate environment, and they can render an assistance, can answer provocative, challenging questions. So of course business now is has started just to nurture or just to grow, I suppose, the new specialists. And of course, specialists, instructors, trainers, and teachers, they come and they teach within the MBA, and these professional corporate experts and trainers, they are involved into the education. And there is a kind of combination of the practical knowledge and the knowledge which people actually may get within the MBA program. That's all I would like just to say. Thank you very much for attention. Thank you very much, Marina.
Thank you very much, Marina. Yeah, I think we can go for some days and keep on talking without any lunch breaks, because this is the business that makes our eyes sparkle, and we really have a lot to share. But I would let myself highlight 3 key trends which are important for all of us similarly, and also for the people, both for the people who are inside the corporate education and outside corporate education, in such a market of training, consulting market, etc. I also see that there is also always a question that when you come to teach somebody something, you've been there before, you understand what people are experiencing, and you understand what kind of mistakes you made and how you coped with them, and which experience you got from there. And if people are not ready to answer such questions and they do not have this life expertise or life experience, unfortunately they won't be able to be useful for the others. But I would like to warn you from one very radical movement, that very often corporate movements and businesses decide to work only at 100% only with business practices and with people who are talking through their experience. But it is always important to have some people who are dealing with researchers and who are supervising everything that is happening. It is important to understand, to realize and conceptualize what's happening, not just to share the miracle that has happened to you, but the reason why it's happening and the outcomes of that. And why it is not a miracle, but a technology. And I think this is a very important angle, very important corner which we have to consider. And another key moment which we are thinking about, and which is already a reality, this is a community. I know that both in Russia, and not only in Russia, but everywhere in the world, people are building corporate universities, considering communities. For example, these universities can be like self-taught or self-learning communities, which, and this makes corporate university look like a community of communities. And this is, of course, very valuable and very important, but we shouldn't be radical about that. So very often companies make these corporate universities and communities very functional. So they take all the corporate functions, join everybody in corporate hierarchy, and they join everybody in a flat structure and release the knowledge that they have gained. And so the practices doesn't go outside, because they follow different limitations of the company. But also there are different communities which are interfunctional, which are between different spheres, which are aimed at very important topics for business. And this is essential for corporate education as well, that many companies create communities from their partners, from even regional activists, civil activists in all the regions they are working with, because they're important for them. So community is not only self-important, but we really have this need to use such an approach as a practice of cooperation, and to create good social structure to develop business. And so communities or community management as a skill, as a method of, as a way of, as a meta skill is also very important and vital. Thank you very much, Marina. We are talking with one more expert of the market who might seem to be quite unexpected in our context, but if we didn't know that, it would be quite expected. Leonid Klein. So first of all, we know you as a person with a very full-scale philological view. We already know that you are acknowledged in many
филолог
Okay.
может дать корпоративному
That
образованию, и
philologists can
каким
give to
образом
corporate
мировая
education
художественная
and
культура
how
может помочь нам
world
решать проблемы
culture can
корпоративного
help us
образования.
deal
Я,
with
Леонид,
the
попрошу
problems of
вас
corporate
в первых
education.
минутках двух
So
отнестись
I
к
will
тому, что
ask
вы
you
слышали, к этим трендам,
to
а
relate
потом
to what
попрошу
you have
рассказать
heard,
про
and
кейс.
then I will ask you to tell about the case.
Да, Ольга,
Yeah,
добрый
Olga,
день,
thank you
спасибо
very much.
большое,
Good
спасибо
afternoon.
большое всем
Thank you very
коллеги,
much to
участники,
all
кто
the
нас видит и
colleagues and the
слышит.
participants
Вы
who
знаете, я
are
тоже
following
многие
us, who are
годы
following
думал,
us.
что это как-то
You
все
know, for
случайно, а
many
потом
years
оказалось, что
I
есть
considered
запрос, ну,
myself
конечно,
to
не на
be
филолога, не
a
на меня, а
very
вот некоторый запрос
surprising
на
element of this
гуманитарное
structure.
знание.
But of
Поэтому
course, it
совершенно
is
это
not
вообще
me
такая
as a
объективная
philologist, but
вещь.
this
Вот я
is a
хочу
demand
отнестись вот
for some
к
humanitarian
представителю
knowledge, and I would
НЛМК,
like
да,
to
к
relate
Валентине. Я
to
несколько лет назад
Valentina, the representative of
участвовал
NLMK. Some
там
years ago, I
в
took part
читательском
in
клубе, который был
a
создан при
written club
Корп-университете
which was
НЛМК.
created
Вот, понимаете, что это такое
at the
читательский клуб?
University of
Значит, есть
LMK. Do you understand what a
объективный
reading club
запрос
is?
на
That is a
гуманитарное
need
знание,
from
потому
people to
что
have some
есть
humanitarian knowledge
очевидное
because
совершенно
probably they have
ощущение,
some
что
obvious
там
feelings
очень много
that
чего есть, там есть чему поучиться. Я сейчас скажу о кейсах, но просто действительно я хочу немножко отнестись. Вот понимаете, что такое культура? Культура — это как бы та платформа, которая позволяет нам помнить о прошлом и пользоваться этим прошлым как кейсом. Я хочу опять еще рассказать про НЛМК. Я был в музее значит, Новолипецкого металлургического комбината. И меня совершенно поразило, хотя мы много раз про это читали, что в начале войны все производство было там за полтора-2 месяца эвакуировано и построено на новом месте. Ну там понятно, окей, репрессивная машина, но вы не можете с помощью репрессивной машины это сделать, потому что есть невероятная была административная какая-то хватка, устойчивость, жизнестойкость и все что угодно. И этот опыт может быть на самом деле закреплен только в культуре, потому что только с помощью культуры мы помним такие вещи. Вот, например, значит, там вот Роман, мы тоже там сотрудничали с Норникелем, говорил про скорость. Вы говорили про управление изменениями. Понимаете, значит, вот Андрей Балконский перед Бродинским сражением говорит Пьеру Безухову, как можно вообще чем-то управлять, если картина боя кардинально меняется за 15 минут. Вы просто вдумайтесь, понимаете, говорят, два героя 19 века, нам с нашей, вот как бы с наших, так сказать, скоростных мессенджеров, вот камер и так далее, нам кажется, что они там вообще как черепахи были. Нет, у них скорость принятия решения, изменения были такими же, я повторяю, но просто у каждого свой контекст. Значит, вот сейчас коллега, которая рассказывала, да, вот из высшей школы экономики, да, про то, как применять, как припарковывать, как было сказано, знания или теорию на практике. Значит, все, что происходит в Толстого перед австралийским сражением, это про то, как генералы немецкие рассказывают, там Толстой иронично говорит, что они выучили, они придумали себе науку, которую назвали истиной, и никак не могут от нее отойти. А Кутузов сидит и пытается каким-то образом припарковать все их умения, и если вы их не припаркуете, то на самом деле сражение будет проиграно, и оно, кстати, было проиграно. И Кутузов об этом знал. Вот тут я хочу на самом деле перейти к кейсам, потому что, собственно говоря, ну, я могу, я не хочу занимать много времени, остановлюсь только на одном большом примере, это роман «Война и мир». Совершенно очевидно, что это самая актуальная книжка на сегодня, потому что мы уже забыли, что был ковид. И, кстати, понимаете, кто об этом потом будет помнить? Помните, об этом будет культура. Значит, будут написаны романы, что происходило. У нас сейчас совершенно очевидно новое потрясение, об этом невозможно сказать, что такое роман «Война и мир». Роман «Война и мир» — это роман про то, что победа возникла из огромной цепи ошибок, поражений, преступлений, равнодушия. Но дело в том, что если вы хотите жить долго, если вы хотите принимать стратегические решения, если вы вообще рассчитываете на долгую, благополучную, как бы, развивающуюся жизнь, то вот у меня такое многоточие, куда я вам скажу, что вообще-то надо читать большой роман. Вот тут было сказано про 7-минутные, вот, по-моему, вот Оксана говорила про какие-то 7-минутные моменты, но если перед нами огромная компания, международная компания, транснациональная компания, если перед нами возникают вызовы фактически национального и, в общем-то, вселенского масштаба, что мы сейчас видим, мы все потеряли устойчивость, то, по большому счету, главным лекарством является
the biggest remedy for us would be reading and analyzing a novel which was written within a very, very short period of time, like to some extent, and it's still very relevant. And this novel shows that in any situation, you shouldn't panic, you shouldn't make fuss, you should be ready for losses. And losses can happen, and leaders, real leaders, they are not the ones who want to be the leaders. These are the ones who are challenged. So leader is always a response to a certain challenge. It is always a response to challenge.
И вот у нас есть два лидера в романе «Война и мир», это просто уже конкретный кейс. У нас есть Наполеон, у нас есть Кутузов. Понимаете, Наполеон, в принципе, не терпит поражений. У него есть один кейс мгновенного завоевания, так сказать, одной, второй, третьей страны, и ему кажется, что он этот кейс может масштабировать. Он не может масштабировать этот кейс. Почему? Потому что есть, простите, региональный контекст. Вы не учитываете региональный контекст, вы растягиваете, вы делаете несколько Вы растягиваете войну на очень большие расстояния, понимаете? Это раз. Во-вторых, вы не можете вести войну в 19 веке зимой, потому что вам нечем кормить лошадей. Вы просто забываете эти детали, вы забываете, и вы забываете многие вещи, и потом у вас перед вами логика поражения, дорожная карта поражения. Вот. У нас есть модные и тренды, и важные там, антикрупность, черный лебедь и так далее. Мы можем почитать «Войну и мир» и увидеть, как создавалось поражение Наполеона и как создавалась победа России. Разница между Наполеоном и Кутузовым заключается принципиально, заключается в том, что Кутузов не смотрится в зеркало. Он не думает о себе. Он думает о своей функции. И он знает, что поражение не только возможно, но они и будут. Перед австралийским сражением Андрей Балконский спрашивает Кутузова, чем закончится сражение. И практик скажет, ну как же, а где же настрой на победу, позитив? Как вы можете говорить своему подчиненному? Можете. Потому что вы можете говорить. Это не значит, что нужно отступать. Когда сражение начинается, Кутузов говорит, остановите этих мерзавцев. И Андрей Балконский, мы все это читали в школе, и это как раз помнят все. Потому что потом я просто учился в советской, ну и даже в постсоветской школе, знают этот момент. Кутузов кричит «остановите», Андрей Балконский берет знамя и идет вперед, потому что есть долг. И здесь все, и мотивация, и главное представление о том, что в каком-то смысле поражение неизбежно. Кутузов не считает себя главным героем, он считает себя парусом. Это очень важно для руководителя. Это важнейшая компетенция, потому что если вы считаете, если вы создаете себя в качестве паруса,
Because if you understand that you are a sail, you should understand that sometimes it is a period of silence, but this is not a reason to suffer. You cannot change it, that's okay. You cannot win everybody and always, but sometimes
воспользовавшись теми ресурсами, теми обстоятельствами, которые вам дала судьба и Бог, вы можете победить, если у вас есть правильные навыки. И таких примеров, вот, так сказать, там конкретно, я могу сейчас сказать, допустим, конкретный пример про коммуникацию с подчиненным и про доверие и про делегирование ответственности. У нас очень часто руководители, и, кстати, об этом, это тоже запрос корпоративных университетов. У нас очень часто руководители концентрируют огромную власть и с трудом передоверяют ее подчиненным, бесконечный контроль, а вот как там обратная связь, вы правда поняли, 15 тысяч писем и так далее, и так далее. Непонятно, когда работать. Вот в «Войне и мире» есть классическая сцена, еще раз повторяю, это вообще глобальный управленческий кейс на все времена, а вот сегодня это точно. Вот просто сегодня точно. В ситуации, так сказать, глобального потрясения, в которой оказалась наша страна, и здесь не надо ничего скрывать. Значит, если вы помните, там есть такой персонаж, очень, он вообще встречается 1,5 раза, буквально. Он даже не
pretty rare. Like he doesn't even fall in love with Natasha Rostova, so he wasn't that interesting for Tolstoy. So-called Captain Tushin. And Captain Tushin lost Shakrab fight with his soldiers just because nobody told him that the battle was lost. Talking about the plans, the base and the changes. So he's about information context, absolutely, you're right. Switch off the gadgets and you will win. Nobody will tell you. Users are losers, so make your own agenda. Captain Tushin was forming his agenda. Absolutely, you're absolutely right, Olga. It was very relevant. His assistant was afraid to go there because they were on fire, but Captain Tushin chose the right strategy. He was well motivated with great soldiers, and he himself showed the initiative at the place where he was. And then Bolkonsky had to stand up for him because Bagration was very angry. Like, why didn't you go back? But there was nowhere to go, and he lost, and he won that battle. And it is an important moment, not because you shouldn't plan anything, but you should understand your own limitations, your own burden and duties. Kutuzov in War and Peace didn't consider himself to be the cleverest. He didn't look into the mirror. He saw that there were many more circumstances. But every day we wake up and we see that the circumstances and our anti-fragility, whatever we call that, they are more than our analysis. And if we admit that, then we have a chance to win, because we have a chance to accept what we have and not to neglect it. So I can actually go on forever. Yeah, thank you very much, Leonid. You really inspired us, and when we are talking about human-centered approach, humanities in our education, we can see through the examples of Russian literature, we can actually find answers to many questions. And no matter what we are saying, that a human is the same and humanity is the same, but the peculiarity of the tools we are using is just changing. And the most important thing in the framework of corporate education is a dialogue about the leadership. So if we consider leadership as a sail and the rest as circumstances like weather and something else we cannot influence, and the context is always bigger than we are, but we definitely know how to deal within any framework and how to tackle our advantages and our strong sides. So this is our resilience, if you want. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Now we have some time for questions and answers, so 2 minutes for everybody maximum. Yeah. So in the format of, like, I don't use the word life hack, but this is the one which is easily understandable for everybody. So your tips and some advice that you can share to the questions that were most interesting in your performances.
Oksana, I would like just to ask a question. What about the recommendations, in terms of recommendation? How just to make up an effective track of education, which is a combination of the internal demands and external as well? Is it possible to combine? And thank you very much, Olga, very much. We need just to start with the most important. We need just to agree on what do we understand by the internal or external audience. We have different groups, suppliers, clients, sellers, which worked in the retailers, and also who help us just to deliver products. And also, of course, I would like just to distinguish young people and talented people, and of course, within the different programs. And of course, we have different goals, and depends on the purpose or goal, we have different aims. All the time I ask, what is the reason, why are we doing this? And sometimes I don't have an answer. First of all, because we are a corporate university. And the second, I would like just to highlight certain touch points and certain topics. So we need just to accumulate and just to actually save a certain experience in terms of their, for example, seller. If it is seller becomes a part of our legal entity, so that is it should be just the same format and nearly identical, but at the same time to take into consideration the changes and alteration which have been, and we have working on such kind of point how just to correlate between, and also the next one, the correlation between suppliers. So how just to work effectively in terms of the corporate culture, compliance. So we need just to with our partners just to use the same norms as we. So because we have it, because all the time we have different approaches, and we need just to find the target audience, and where we need just to start to synchronize and what kind of formats to use to implement it properly. So definitely the opportunity just to go from one category to another and just to create different cross tracks in education. One of the points just would like just to focus on and to highlight and underscore is that now is the time of a kind of an ecosystem. If you think that your suppliers of the third or the second level, so it doesn't matter how they live, but it's not in such kind of way, because all such kind of suppliers are going to be associated with your values, with your standards, with the compliance. That's why the education and training of the suppliers and all the stakeholders of your environment in your chain of supplies or more like have a link certain with your quality of your goods. Of course, it is your responsibility, your sector of influence. Of course, you need to define where to go, but of course, corporate university is a kind of a great tool to help. I've got a question to Roman. You first got about the advanced learning, whom you need just to go ahead, why and what kind of way you need to go ahead, and where you need just to. I'm not going just to respond to all the philosophical questions. After Leonid, it's very difficult just to say something, but I have 2 points to focus on. So what do we understand now in Nornickel about the perspective education? We use different lots of words which we seem to be quite education, life learning, education, perspective education. We have lots of terms. So I thought that I asked, but it was kind of obvious, it's understandable for those. But once I asked, what is a kind of perspective or life learning education, but nobody was able to answer. So that's why when within Nornickel we are speaking about advanced learning. So when we in Nornickel, once one of my colleagues has already answered this question, so it's connected with the development of the professional competence, professional skills. Everything is clear, precise. So that's a kind of structured system, which is not simple. It's a kind of a complex progress, because we have a kind of 50 different profiles of our positions and posts, and enable just to make this kind of process transparent. We need just to give our corporate education to run this complex education process. So we need to have a certain organization. So that is the obvious things, and everybody actually speak about. And as for the second vector of development and the second direction of the second one is connected with the culture of education. Leonid was actually mentioned what we are going just to remember. So what about the culture and the culture of the future? So we may speak a lot about the new formats, micro, who is going just to, do we need to use certain labels, slogans, mottos? So first of all, we are important, what kind of environment our employees work at. It is impossible to speak about this, about cultures, and we actually consider culture, environment as an inextricable parts of the corporate education and about the new training. Definitely, we need just to underscore the role of personality, and in particular the role of the top manager. So of course, manager, top manager, any kind of manager should be a kind of an ambassador of a new culture, of a new training, of a new system. But if it is not so, it will not work effectively in a perspective. So Roman, I can't ask you the kind of full extended questions. I would like just to speakers we have online and offline, just to stay with our. So what can you actually use? What kind of terms? What kind of knowledge do we? What is important about corporate education? Without comments, at any kind of. Leonid, you may start actually. So what do we need to focus first? So you need to read books now, future. So it's better just to make a kind of a new architect of the future, just to be a person first of all, just to help others. It's important and vital, essential for us. And just to be sincere to the needs of other people, to support them, to give a kind of aid. I would like to say just to listen to the responses and to know what do the people want really. Olga, I would like just, so what are the values? To share values. It's essential to share values. Thank you very much. Anything else? What are your recommendations? Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, that is the kind of productive discussion. We discussed numerous issues. We use different words like cooperation, community, creativity, global culture, memory, and dialogue. We use all these terms. So if you're going just to stay within such kind of framework, and the corporate education will be in a successful trend, and of course, it's in our new strategy, and we're going to create a new strategic partnerships. And so we just to create a kind of a sustainable development and provide sustainable development in corporate education. Thank you very much. I hope that our discussion was challenging, interesting, and appealing, and everything is in accordance with the principles of the corporate education. Thank you very much for participation.
Уважаемые участники Красноярского экономического форума, мы рады приветствовать вас на сессии «7 вопросов экспертам» и ESG-повестка формирования туристического бренда региона, которая проходит при поддержке Национального конгресс-бюро. Меня зовут Дарья Островская, сегодня я модерирую наше ток-шоу. Кстати, этот формат прижился и стал традиционным для Красноярского экономического форума. Мы сегодня обсуждаем тему, которая, на самом деле, в 2022 году не сходила с полос СМИ, постоянно ее обсуждали, и эксперты, в общем-то, называют ESG-принципы одним из ключевых трендов для регионального развития на предстоящие несколько лет. Ну, для сравнения, то, что касается СМИ, по данным Миниологии, в 2019 году термин ESG был упомянут почти 50 тысяч раз в различных сообщениях, в СМИ, в интернете, в соцсетях и так далее. В 2020 году таких сообщений уже было 104 тысячи, а в 2021 году их количество увеличилось до 350 тысяч. Ну, в общем-то, мы понимаем, что это тема, которая постоянно присутствует в информационной повестке. И действительно, государство в последнее время очень много уделяет внимания этой теме. Она со стороны государства делает шаги для того, чтобы регионы учитывали это в своей стратегии, в своем развитии. Ну и, соответственно, туризм, событийная отрасль, о которых мы сегодня будем говорить, также не остается в стороне. Согласно данным World Economic Forum, в фокусе с точки зрения туризма и событийной индустрии, в фокусе и устойчивой повестки находится создание устойчивой дестинации их развития, зеленая экономика и углеродная нейтральность. Вот такие три столпа, на которых стоит сейчас ESG-повестка в событийной индустрии и в туризме. Мы сегодня пытаемся ответить вместе с нашими уважаемыми экспертами, на что в первую очередь должны обратить внимание регионы при формировании своих стратегий. Может ли стратегия устойчивого развития стать дополнительным конкурентным преимуществом в борьбе за международные мероприятия, а также как заинтересовать отраслевые предприятия в регионе в совместных инвестициях в устойчивое будущее. Вот, собственно, наш вопрос, который мы сегодня обсудим. Я с удовольствием представляю наших экспертов. Сначала коллега introduce our experts.
First, I will introduce our online experts. Юлия Верхушина is the deputy head of the administration of the governor of Krasnoyarsk region. Nice to see you, Julie. Evgenia Turtapkina, vice rector for information policy, Siberian Federal University. Krasnoyarsk. Christopher, the representative of experts of State Duma for tourism and tourism, expert of Russian Academy of Science. Natalia Belякova, partner of the Center for Strategic Consulting, associate professor at the High School of Economics, expert of the Tourism Committee of State Duma of the Russian Federation in St. Petersburg. Victoria Vasilyeva, director for public relations policy. Olga Filipenko, director for strategic development, Krasnaya Polyana, Sochi, Russia. And finally, Sergei Zaremukov, the director of the Russian Convention Bureau, Moscow. Nice to meet you, colleagues. I think we are ready to start the discussion. We have a lot of questions on ESG agenda, considering that this topic is one of the most discussed. We have prepared 7 key questions which will help the regions to understand how to work with this topic in their everyday agenda. So first question is, I guess we'll start with this one. What elements should the regional ESG agenda include nowadays? So that's the basic key question. Christopher, would you like to start, please? Your comment. Thank you very much, Daria. Good afternoon to all the participants of the forum. Thank you very much for the invitation to this very interesting event. The first question is the most the most topical. Which elements the regional ESG agenda should include? Many might think that nowadays it's definitely, well, we don't have time for ESG and sustainable development, considering the new economic reality we are now in. But at the same time, I think, and I guess my colleagues will support me, sustainable development is now the headliner of the concept, and the sustainability concept is more than relevant than it ever used to be before, and the focus of the sustainable development has just shifted a little bit. So what is sustainable development? It's a balance between economic, social and economic aspects, but nowadays this shift goes towards economics, towards the conservation of economic stability of the country and of the regions. And of course, we shouldn't forget about the aspects of ecology, of social components, which shouldn't would detour somehow this important aspect. ESG is an important element of sustainable development, and this is a tool of transformation, and we have to mobilize all the economics, because nowadays we are in unprecedented conditions, and we shouldn't compare everything with sanctions we used to have before. I don't think this makes sense. So all the transformation of the system of economics management and all the procedure of branches transformation should take the first place, and ESG and the concept of sustainability with a focus on economic stability will play the key role. Talking about touristic sphere, and our topic is connected with the creation of regional touristic brand, I guess we should also think about what brand is, and brand is usually in the heart of our users, and it should be associated with certain criteria of quality, culture, price, and many others. And the creation of new trading brand or new logo or naming is not correct. And nowadays, positioning a region is also connected with global geopolitical agenda. For tourism, sustainability has a row of advantages, talking about the improvement of economic stability and in terms of positioning. The question is how to use it, but I think we'll talk about it a little bit later. Yeah, thank you very much. We are going to be talking about this later, how the regions can use ESG agenda. Natalie, in your opinion, what are the three key elements the ESG agenda includes nowadays? So what regions should consider? Yeah, thank you very much, Dasha. I would continue what Christopher said, who mentioned the very important thing that whether sustainable development has a future. And I would say that only sustainable future is something we are planning to work for, and while we are doing our activity. The concept of sustainable development has never been so topical. So even if we forget all the hype that was raised around the ESG agenda, which used to be quite new, I have already discussed it with our colleagues before the beginning of the discussion. But actually, social responsible business and the region which is thinking about its citizens and first generations would be living not worse than we are. It's not new, it just has new terminology, new words, but actually the idea is pretty logical, and it has never been more topical than ever before. So talking about the elements, I would probably focus on the element of consensus, which nowadays is a very important idea, which we should develop. And this is the moment when a lot of actors related to tourism industry are connected together, and they have decided that sustainable development is important. And this is economic responsibility, which is more than sustainable, talking about the development, their own corporate culture and responsibility, industrial security, and companies have been working for a long time trying to approach this important feature. The second key moment is about the regions, which are also competing with each other, talking from the perspective of marketing. They are competing for tourists, for the residents, trying to attract them to come to their regions. And many regions have already started dealing with this strategy, and they are checking the strategy for 2035, and they're trying to integrate the tasks to achieve this goal achievement and sustainability concepts. And of course, talking about business into tourist business, and this is of course relates to the work of B2C. We understand that we have a new generation of consumers which is growing, and these consumers consume is kind of accustomed to recycling rubbish, but ESG agenda is not new. This is something which they see as part of their life, like part of the furniture. And so it's pretty difficult to satisfy the needs of these new users. And thanks to that, thanks to sustainable development, we can integrate it into our everyday practice and to organize work in the long-term perspective and to include it into business processes.
Thank you very much, Natalia, for your comments. We're going just to come back to the process of competitiveness of ESG. I would like just to give a floor to Evgeny Tapkin. Could you add something as the leading and the largest university? From your point of view, what should regions take into account just to make an agenda of ESG? Thank you very much for the question. Hello, colleagues. I'm very happy just to be a part of such kind of discussion. So honestly speaking, I would like just to say something at the end, because the university has their own role in terms as an expert. It's like kind of enlightenment. Usually universities are about enlightenment. I fully agree with all the speakers, but mostly people they speak about the responsibility of the business. But as for the universities, they have completely different goals. So we are working in a close cooperation with the tourism agency, with the administration of the region. All the time we cooperate quite effectively with the administration. So we are kind of an intellectual intensifier or tank, just in order to help the region to advance in this kind of direction. So, by the way, at the end of our discussion, the universities are responsible for the important cluster. So perhaps we are responsible and we are in charge of kind of. So we are in charge of. But in everyday life of the citizens of Krasnoyar, the standards of everyday culture. So just to choose ESG agenda, just to opt for ESG agenda. So our university is now participating in a large project. So now we are to launch a new project about the low carbon economy. So of course there are different elements. We are going just to create a kind of carbon park, and we are going just to create it within our campus, and our campus actually allows to create something like that. The campus actually is surrounded by the woods. We have different landscapes. So we are going just to make up a kind of research laboratory extension, and we are going just to calculate in terms of the urban traces analysis. Moreover, we have a kind of a park, and we're going just to make it open for everybody, such kind of park. So we're going to attract new tourists just to see, to feel it with our hands, how it works. So what is SG agenda? What does it contain? SG trade. So every tourist who visits Krasnoyarsk and who actually attends campus of Siberian Federal University, and just to see whether it is possible for him just to make a kind of contribution. Of course, we are going just to think about, for example, green purchasing. So we are going just to focus on such kind of issues more attentively. So we are going to assess about the energy effectiveness of the different products and goods. Also, we need just to take into account the legal framework. So all these questions, they need just to work with this. We have a law school within our university, and we are ready just to work with this. But just summarizing what we have just questions we have. So we have ESG also deciphering. So the ecological responsibility and transparency. transparency of the business. We also kind of leading players or a kind of parties, or so it is a regional administration authorities and business in general who are actually working in a company, of course, citizens of Krasnoyarsk, residents of Krasnoyarsk. And if we are to sum up everything, let's come with the second question: how do all these kind of issues influence our market, and is it possible just to sustain its competitiveness? And with example, I suppose, of dear colleagues, good afternoon. I'm very happy just to be here. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm happy and delighted to be a part of the Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum. I'm quite far, but you are here in Krasnoyarsk. But I'm absolutely certain, I'm sure that we have similar meanings about the major issues. Why industrial region as a Krasnoyarsk? Why have we decided to develop tourism in Krasnoyarsk? The Krasnoyarsk is an industrial region, so unlike other regions, when for some regions tourism is like the foundation or basis of the business. Of course, Krasnoyarsk has a certain image as an industrial city, and of course it impedes the process of the development of the tourism. So we actually just trying to think about how to change this image, and while we were preparing for the universiade with a kind of international event. So now we think that it's not the right way just to not to get just to pay attention, to draw attention to tourism. And of course we changed, and we thought that after universiade, what should we do after universiade? Who is going just to visit Krasnoyarsk region? Of course, taking into account the industrial might of the Krasnoyarsk region. Of course, it is not a positive asset for the tourism development. But of course, after universiade, it has become clear to us that we need just to create a new image and to develop tourism as in general. And of course, we created tourism agency as a separate department in our region. Of course, we created our own program of development, prospective development of tourism industry in Krasnoyarsk, and it was a single way for us just to unwrap a new agenda, just to create a kind of the principle of destination. So just to create a kind of ecological soft power, and so the major potential in terms of tourism, we need just to create a kind of ecological tourism, and just to create a kind of natural vectors, that we need just to change the image of the industrial city, and to shift from the industrial image of a city, and to create a new image of eco-friendly tourism. So we are thinking about it quite a long time, and we try to figure out how just to change this image, and how to create a new agenda which may help us just to attract tourists. And of course, we've been evolving through such kind of process. Of course, we need just to use the image of large corporation, industrial companies, and just to make their image to work for us. Okay, to work in a close collaboration, large companies. So I would like just to say hello to Polis company. We have already been implementing for a while several programs with the Polis. Polis also has its own interest, but in an honest dialogue and in a close cooperation and collaboration with the large corporation, industrial corporations, we pursue the similar interests. So that is the dialogue is needed just to be structured in a certain way. So we need just just to work in a kind of collaboration, not only just to ask for money or just ask for sponsorship, but also just to involve the companies into the process of the development and the changing and alteration of the image of the Krasnoyarsk region. And when we have a kind of an intersection between of such kind of plans, we can see that it's going to be positive asset, it's going to be kind of a chance to change the image of the Krasnoyarsk as the industrial cluster, but also we can shift the emphasis and just to say that the Krasnoyarsk has a great amount, numerous eco destination, national parks, which we may attract new tourists. And also we need just to agree on a certain system plans in close cooperation with the large corporations for the perspective years. And as the project has already demonstrated, so it's beneficial for all participants of the project. We are going just to be back to the projects which as a company Polis is now developing and implementing within the territory of the Krasnoyarsk region. I would, Helena, I suppose you have something to add. Yulia has clearly formulated the goals of the regions, Krasnoyarsk region, but I would like to we feel our responsibility just how to work out new innovative decisions, but we are more focused on the personality, on the person, on the citizens, of human being. But not only ecology might be our brand, but also, but there is a kind of a new trend is gaining popularity like gastronomy. So within the CAF, yesterday there was a great event which was devoted to gastronomy, and the Federal University is developing new innovative products within the sphere of gastronomy. So we are inventing new bio-products which can become a kind of a new innovations and new projects which can be kind of a basis. Thank you very much for the comments. So we are speaking now about the image of Krasnoyarsk region for the tourists. So we are speaking about the massive intake, which we may say about the business tourism. I would like to give a floor to the Guido Harimugame. Is it possible to say how ESG strategy has a kind of impact on the territory? Yes or not? How to work with the tourists to use ESG? How to work with the tourists? From my point of view, within the framework of our agenda, I would like just to underscore on the business business trips. So if we are back to the questions, so if we are business tourists, business trips, so those tourists who actually visit Krasnoyarsk, for example, visit conferences, forums. So as for business trips, they have never been a part of a ESG agenda. But after pandemic, the most of their organizers now they are working offline, and now we're changing the conception and the attitudes to different events. And of course we need just to take into account and to incorporate the green standards into the agenda. And of course we are working, and there is so international market, all the kind of but all the kind of companies, they demand that they actually incorporate into their demands, into the requirements, that we need just to follow a certain eco-friendly or ESG agenda. So in order just to minimize emissions, for example, CO2 emissions, how to minimize, how to use the amount of a packaging, how to stimulate how to stimulate the production. So also we need to think how just to work with the delegates, just to use a taxi instead of their cars. So we are one of the first. So we need just to follow certain criteria, and such kind of requirements are essential for many events just now. So just to use advertising instead of paper adverts, and just use e-tickets, just to use any kind of eco-friendly devices, any eco-friendly practices. Thank you very much, Sagit. Olga, can you add something?
Yeah, Olga, please, can you continue the talk, how the different platforms form their sustainability agenda, how do they offer to their clients to work with that? So share your experience, please, of using ESG principles in your work. Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to add, because we have a lot of experience in this sphere, I mentioned already that it was discussed widely in mass media last year, and we have written the strategy of sustainable development in 2020, only when pandemic started, and we had a lot of time to think about that. And I can say that nowadays tourists who are coming to relax, I mean, part of them, not all of them, of course, but we are working for that. But I guess that they are already forming a demand for kind of responsible type of rest. For example, in our hotels, we started to certify them using Galen-K. One of the hotels is fully certified, and the others are about to be certified, and considering certain events, organizing certain events, all the products which are now used in the sector of F&B, the territory of resorts, local products mostly. And this is one of the principles to support local business activity in the region, on the territory where we are. So actually we are actively implementing different tools in response to the demand which exists. And I understand that this is not even a tendency, this is kind of a habitual practice of doing business, which we cannot imagine developing further. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Christopher, you're welcome. Yeah, just three things to mention. First of all, what Sagit was talking about, I don't feel jealous about him because his particular business is in a very difficult situation. About 90% of all the bookings is going down, and we can say that business tourism is stopped for a while if we consider international restrictions nowadays. Internal, well, I mean, we are now present at the event, but you understand that the situation is very difficult. The second key point, our speakers are sharing very interesting ideas, very bright ideas, but I have a feeling that I am either here yesterday or in the day before yesterday. I will explain why. So let us not face away from the situation which we are in now. We cannot do the same things we were doing yesterday. We are in an unprecedented situation, under unprecedented conditions, and we cannot adapt the measures we applied during COVID times. Nowadays we have to mobilize all the branches, mobilize the economics to save the branches, not to lose them. And in terms of that, like in connection with that, it is important to dwell upon the situation which is happening now, and we have to use the concept of sustainable development to tackle that. And I will move on to the next question, like which strategies influence the decision of tourists, both on international market and on domestic market. International would be later when we will come back to developing international relations. But nowadays, let's consider, let's think where the tourism will be developing. It's only about domestic market. So if we are going to change everything, considering the blockade of the experts, and tourism can develop in a very interesting way. It can grow dramatically. and thus, while improving the turnover of the economy inside the regions, we can stimulate the development of other industries and branches as well. So nowadays, if the region takes such situation into consideration, then the authorities can use certain criteria of sustainability, of economic sustainability, first of all, to save the branches and the region, and trying to achieve carbon neutrality. Many experts and many international corporations are very serious about economic consequences and the expenses. It goes without saying that both abroad and here, all the tourists were paying a lot of attention to the greenery, to the following the declaration of ESG agenda. It's very attractive. It improves the loyalty of the clients. We should use it and develop it. And apart from optimization, we should try to minimize the expenses and damaging the environment. But it can also help to improve the economic stability and the ecology, both for resorts and certain ecological organizations. But the presence of strategy nowadays will definitely not influence the image and the task we have to deal with. But its effective application, it's just another question. Yeah, thank you very much for your comment. I actually think that ESG strategy is always about the long term, and it actually creates the amount of flexibility and sustainability for the region, no matter what crisis is happening or which internal or external factors are influencing the economics. I mean, any economics following this route of going up and down. So ESG is just a tool that helps us, that helps regions to survive in these conditions. So we were talking about Krasnodarsky Krai. We have an example of Krasnoyarsk region. So coming to our next question, do we already have sustainable destinations? You mentioned that we live in the past. So talking about here and now, do we already have destinations which we can call sustainable? Sagit, would you please be the first? Well, considering, like I will just repeat, considering the eventful and business tourism, we can highlight the following places: St. Petersburg. It has the Index of Sustainability of World Sustainability, which is formed considering 17 aims of sustainability, and which was formed by the members of United Nations. And in this index, there are more than 50 cities all over the world, and there is just one city in Russia which takes part there. It has developed a strategy of sustainable development. It's St. Petersburg. And it works for both tourism and adjacent branches, and also other examples which are worth noting. This is Sverdlovsk Oblast, which are now following the principles of developing green technologies when they are organizing events. Murmansk Oblast, which is focusing on ecotourism when developing destinations, and our Krasnoyarsk colleagues proved that they are actively developing ecological destination and ecotourism. But it is worth noting that this particular branch is not going to be 100% realized, and we should see sustainability much wider. So, and we should work on sustainability because it's a complex issue. On the one hand, we talk about authorities, about business, about non-commercial organizations, and the citizens of the region, of the destination, and of course tourists who are coming to the area. And the green direction, green guideline just highlights and focuses on our respect to the environment. So Natalie, would you please complete this list of regions? I actually work a lot in this branch. I read a lot, and I don't have I can't remember that any region would be claiming that we are a sustainable destination, but we do not don't have such strategies. We can argue whether we need it or whether we don't need it, but we agree that we should follow in the direction of sustainability, whether intuitively or following the strategy or whatever. We don't have any region who has presented this strategy. We do have this rights rating, and it has a lot of critics, but there are fewer than talking about the one-code methodology. But this is just the only rating that we have, which we can deal with somehow. But talking about like globally Leningradsky Oblast and St. Pete, Moscow, something like that, if I'm not mistaken, talking about ranging various regions in accordance of as data they have on the first place, because the index there considers how much money they spend on society, on labor work, and so this is what they have included. So here, the first place is now, and the third place St. Pete. So the logic of so where is tourism here? This is what I want to discuss first of all, and I would like to say that actually I feel that the connection of a city and a village and business and tourism is actually a question of tomorrow. We are just entering this issue. Look, being realistic, such projects are actually exclusive, and we can consider the case of Polis, we are coming up to it. But actually, there is a very close connection if we look at the logic of company, how they realize various social and economic agreement. The role of company, which works in tourism, it would make people surprised and will make people in the company shocked, like who creates infrastructure for the structure, but those who made these great steps, or who creates another issue, who creates the sites for the companies. But these different plants and factories who generate industrial tourism, Magnitogorski plant, for example, and industrial tourism is becoming popular. So who creates everything that is important for tourists? Who creates the events? The companies who try to revive deer breeders, and it hasn't been in practice since Soviet time. And this is something that tour guides and tour companies can attract tourists. So the leaders of the branch are interested in everything the companies are doing. So, and this means that the social policy of company and the responsible work with local communities, the development of the responsible consumerism, as you, Julia, already mentioned, as this happens with the demands of the region. It can be presented in different ways, various agreements, economic and social agreements, joint projects, but these are the projects which can be seen everywhere, which are asked from different companies, with the help of different support and co-investment into a complex project. And companies are ready to support ambitious projects of the regions which contribute to the diversification of the structure of labor market in the region, because exactly this is the index that makes a region with mono-economics attractive for tourists, especially when we're talking about the main industries. This is it is a developed human market that attracts the tourists. Well, moving to our next issue, I will ask you to comment on this practice. I mean, we don't have enough experience of that, but how to notify the regions about the practices of sustainable development that they use, how to attract the clients, the event organizers, and the tourists. I guess I'll be talking more about certain locations, because we have great diversity, talking about resorts, for example, in the mountains. it is actually, well, we do have these demands, as I mentioned earlier. The tourists are interested in ecotourism, and when we form certain touristic product, it includes different elements. For example, for summer season, now we all had only summer season, but now we have winter season because we offered walking tracks and projects for the guests to discover the territory. And guests understanding that they can spend some time in the mountains with their own responsible behavior, they are interested in that. They come and visit the place. And we see that all the advertising campaigns that exist nowadays who promote new offers, it's everything that somehow touches the topic of sustainable tourism, the economy of impressions, and so on and so forth. So these are the elements which help to promote destinations and to promote the products. As I said last year, and now in new reality which we're living in, how we are waiting for the upcoming summer tourism, we have to plan it and to plan the current season. Of course, we mostly focus on sustainable development, and everything that we are preparing is connected with this particular direction. So the elements how to promote this, we have quite a lot. They are numerous, but basically we take ecology, responsible consumerism, and then we think which tools to apply.
I would like one more additional question to you. We have been speaking a lot about strategy, about the long-term strategy. Do regions have certain risks just to choose the road of sustainable development? Can you clarify? So definitely, if we speak about sustainable development, about the ESG transformation, of course, that is a new challenges for regions. And as any kind of management process, it depends on effectiveness and competence. And there's the clear assessment of the current situation. So, but if we continue just to thoughts of Olga and responding to the question, what kind of instrument can we use just to promote the destination and sustainable development of the region? So we are not going just to be actually linked to any kind of borders, regions, or the subject of the Southern Federation. We speak about the region as a kind of a territory. And we don't have so many examples in our country. Not so, Natalia has already mentioned this kind of fact, but for example, Krasnaya Polyana, Rosa Hutor, they have been implementing pilot projects, and they were the starters, they initiated with like pioneers, like explorers who explore new routes. And in such kind of terms, several questions arise. Of course, there are certain risks, and what is sustainable development of the tourism? As for the tourism, so tourism is increasing greatly and actually going ahead of the economy. So it gives a great impulse and a put premium on the development of the tourism. So more than 50 industries, they are just to such kind of territory. So that is a kind of driving, it's a new driver of the development of the economic, tourism. So, and of course, there is a strong impact on all spheres and sectors of economy. But of course, tourism possesses lots of risks in terms of anthropogenism, in terms of security. So that might be also the increase of kind of social tension in local groups. So, and also we need just to think about and to consider how to preserve local cultures where tourism is developing quite fastly. So, of course, we shouldn't forget about the economic component. So, sustainable development is a kind of harmonized development, and it's not only we don't need only to speak about economy. And Natalia has already mentioned several instruments. So that is a kind of ASG rating of the regions. we have been implementing several projects now. And of course, there are some questions how just to incorporate the sustainable development in, and so how just to preserve cultural sustainability. Of course, in great amount of attention should be paid to the education and how just to, in particular, interactive education, which are going just to help just to educate youngsters, new generations, just to teach them eco-friendly relations, and just also just understand what is sustainable development, because many people, they have no idea what sustainable development is and what ESG is. So they have we need just to use educational system in order to promote such kind of agenda, and more it will help just to promote such kind of region which have been implementing the policy of sustainable development. I would like just also to notice, if we speak about the educational function, and of course we need just to think about the different events, and they play significant roles in the popularization of ESG. And of course we may use as an example of the Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum, and we may use it like a positive example, and this may help just to form a kind of image of a country. So if we speak about the event industry, do we have any elements which can actually underscore the sustainable development? So of course all the instruments, they are in a close cooperation will be with the sustainable development. But if we just to make more concrete and to become more practical in terms of sustainable development and the image of the region, of course ESG RX rating, it might be of the vital importance. USBC index, which I have already mentioned, because it's just to implementation of the standards of the sustainable development when we organize new events. So as for for example, all the exhibitions, hotels, they need just to be aware of the sustainable development standards. So when you organize different exhibitions and events, for example, free of charge public transport, for example, might be provided by the organizers, and of course, different community agents, communities, organizations, which can be actually involved in the process of educating and informing the society about the sustainable development. I would like to also just to draw attention to about the regions, and if you go abroad in a special event. So for example, if you go abroad, they also quite often they have certain perks, benefits, which might be provided. For example, free of charge ticket or for example bus fare. So I don't know if you have something like that in Russia. Perhaps somebody is going just to correct me and to say whether such kind of practice exists or not. So if we speak about Russia, we need to speak about the local culture and how to popularize local culture. For example, to use certain souvenirs, kind of a present, just all the visitors and all the participants of a different corporation. We may, of course, just to leave a kind of low carbon trade. Of course, we have already discussed it earlier. Christopher's has actually mentioned multi-functional aspect and just to have a kind of sustainable event. And Sagit has mentioned several standards. For example, Chinese delegations perhaps are going just to come to Krasnoyarsk and to Russia, and we are together with China, where we follow the sustainable development direction. So if we speak about the business trips, that is a kind of a green chain of the suppliers, and we are back to the such kind of word or term multiplication, but of course the industry of the event, so we need just to all the players where should be well educated, well prepared, just to have a kind of understanding of what a sustainable development is, to have a clear vision about sustainability. Perhaps we are with us. And so, for example, just to have a green chains of supplies. Perhaps you're going to be inside, you may be perfectly sustainable, but how are you going just to supply certain green products to the hotels? So you need to use their standards, certain standards, and you need to follow these international standards. For example, we have our ratings, international ratings, and the Global Sustainability Index has been mentioned several times when was St. Petersburg is a part of such kind of index. So there are 71 indicators used to assess the regions, and if we compare with the ESG engine of the company, ESG, for example, regions of it is very close, I suppose, in their essence, in their nature. So we need to synchronize all these two issues. We can't follow the principle of the sustainable development if we are not synchronized. So I would like just to pay your attention or to draw your attention to the experience of the companies. We have already covered this issue. There is a famous rating of RX, and not only regions actually use. On the 15th of February, the last assessment and the last ratings which was shown, 160 companies were represented, and most of the companies for tourism and even 3 avia companies, Sheremetyevo Airport and Russian Railways. Only 3 companies were actually incorporated in such kind of list. So in such kind of, so is it possible to have combined investments, just to combine these kind of terms? If we want just to use the resources because companies have got certain experience in this kind of area, and I would like to give a floor to the company of Polis and to Victoria Vasilyevna. Yesterday I saw that the company Polis in the top 10 rating of RX. What does it give to you? What does it offer? Now, Dario, you have just mentioned the most important thing. What actually does it bring to the table? What does it give to us? Of course, any company works just to pursue their own goals. So any kind of fruitful cooperation with the region. So if our aims coincide or correlate with the interest of the regions, perhaps I'm representing here the most conservative sectors. It's gold mining industry. So the major part, we might say it's mining, for metallurgy sector. They are from the first glance, we are very far from the tourist industry. So we actually mine our gold very far from the center of the capital of the region. So it's very difficult, even this challenging. It's a challenge just to organize the delivery, a kind of a calling to our mining ports. So of course, but we need. It takes time. It's time-consuming just to get it. But strangely, we have a kind of. We are ready to collaborate, and of course, we are working with such kind of regions which are far. Can describe as a far cry from the tourist cities, because we working with the mining territory, with the mining regions. All the regions of the Russian Federation, we are going to develop domestic or internal industry. So not only Sakha, not only Bagadan, so where we coincide. So we sectors of metallurgy and mining industry, extracting industry, we are competing heavily for their human resources. So definitely we may see that there is a kind of a disbalance between disbalance in terms of their educated and qualified in staff, and of course we are trying just to attract employees, qualified employees. So quite often lots of people actually come to our companies. We are interested that citizens and residents of our regions actually they will become our employees. So, and they were happy to live within the regions. And we were also pleased just to come to our, just for example, 1,000 regions. So we are just trying just to promote the attractiveness of our region. So that is the kind of a points where we coincide. Actually, we have a similar visions as our regions, and we work in a close collaboration with local authorities. We are actually creating tourist infrastructure. So in terms of Stolby Reserve, which now is a brand, is a Krasnoyarsk brand, is a major tourist brand of the Krasnoyarsk region. So also we work with Targashinsky Mountain, which is now developing. So we are creating a new infrastructure. We are actually rendering a certain assistance. If in terms of Magadan, so we helped our colleagues from the Magadan's administration in order to create a kind of certain strategic how just to develop city, a new planning, a new city's layout. So we are just contributed greatly into the community center, which is going to be quite great one with the harbor near Magadan. So from one side we are creating and building a new infrastructure, which is one of the important points which we have a certain similar view with the city administration, regional administration, how to develop it. And the second point I would like just to focus your attention, of course, it's connected with the event industry. So we are interested in the attractiveness of the city and the region as general. So we in 4 regions, every year we carry out theater contests. For example, in Yakutia, Irkutskaya Oblast, in Krasnoyarsk, we have lots of small local theaters in small cities. For example, city in Lysosibirsk. For example, if we speak about Lysosibirsk theater, and we speak about the place for funding, and of course it is not. It's difficult for such kind of local theaters to get money, to get a kind of funding, and of course we actually donate and we contribute great monies into such kind of local theaters, and we give a kind of a present. We invite different performances. So we have a context of the modern art, and we such kind of creative people, and they ask them to bring this contest to our regions. We were first who actually brought modern art to Magadan. It was the first time when they actually visited Magadan and made a performance there. So now this year we are going just to have such kind of a contest in Yakutsk. So we are in a close collaboration with Yakutsk administration and authorities. So that was 100 years ago. Yakutsk Oblast was actually founded, and the next year there was be 75 years when the Magadan Oblast was founded, and we invited such kind of new creative artists. So we form lots of I suppose events and just to make tourists, to make regions more tourist attractive. So definitely we organize lots of exhibitions, for example, exhibition from Moscow Museum. So we quite often support or endorse different social events. So in Yakutia, we actually support, we endorse, render aid in Yakutia. Some special, they have special events, special holiday. So that is special. It was such kind of holiday was held, and the event was held near our, I suppose, premises. So colleagues actually know about this contest, and we are going just to support Marathon Jara. That is a running marathon. It's a kind of new brand. As for this marathon, lots of people even actually visit Krasnoyarsk to participate in this marathon called Jara. So that is that's why we all the time support and do our best to support such kind of events. And that is a kind of point where we actually have a kind of interception with the regions and with the businesses. I suppose you will find, and you will find mutually beneficial projects. And of course, we need just to focus on their way how just to compete for their labor resources, for human resources, and definitely you will find new partners and will work for the common good, for the common betterment.
Yeah, thank you very much. So this shows how the company works with the region. And Olga, how do you work in the region? How do you cooperate with the administration? Well, cooperation is going very actively in two directions, social and ecological. And considering that we live in protected zones, and we have special block of support of using development as one of our goals in the strategy of sustainable development. So, for example, we protect the population of CERNs, and we also have a big social story of supporting local entrepreneurs. So we give them an opportunity to develop their products, to promote their products, and artisan activities. So not far from Krasnaya Polyana, there are a lot of people who produce and make souvenirs locally and provide them on a commercial basis for different events organized at the territory of the resort. So in all the aspects that we have in the strategy of sustainable development, we are actively cooperating with administration. We can say that the concept of the resort is integrated and formed, and is a very successful tool of development, of developing the territory and cooperation between the business and the authorities, both regional, federal, and others. So depending on the scale of the resort. So I can say that it is necessary to cooperate, and it is impossible to make business work without a region. It is quite obvious. And summarizing, I can say that the example of Krasnaya Polyana Resort as an integrated area with developed principles of sustainable development, they are adaptable, and this is one of the cases which can be used further in other regions on the whole territory of our country, where the conditions let do so. So, Evgenia, can you please remind us how you cooperate with the region from Federal University? Yeah. Yeah, the question is a little bit strange. We are the cooperation with university. We are a university working in the region, in the interest of the region. We are a federal university, which means that we are fully sharing the principles and responsibility and of the region, and that's why we exist. We exist to make the region develop, and we have a very close connection with the region, including in the authorities and all our industrial partners, and they are numerous, and all the companies which have business, which do business on the territory of Krasnoyarsk Krai, they are all partners of university, and over the last year we have updated agenda, both social, ecological, and technological, and so I would say that it's a monolith platform where business, authority, and society meet together. So university is a communication platform that facilitates this entrance. We understand the challenges the society faces, the challenges of economics. We understand what business needs. We hear what region wants, like what Institute of Power want us to do, and we are trying to make everything connected. And this is our mission. This is our call in both technology, staff, and policy, and social cultural aspects. So it's pretty difficult to say how we work with authorities. We are somehow this Institute of Power of Authority. Yeah, thank you very much, Evgenia. Yeah, I guess it's true. University is one of the instruments that administration is using. Yeah, we have some more comments. Well, actually, I just thought of one example which cannot be mentioned, and it is connected with, which connects very logically commercial sector, university, and the touristic element. So, grant contest from Gazprom Neft, as a result of which, following the initiative of a university, which is the main actor, the main initiator of this process, they created a platform for creative industries where students present their creative works. And the potential of this place is huge, and the youth come into the city. They want not only to see the sites, but also those creative spaces which pop up in big cities. And using such tools as a grant competition, the support for such project exists. And I just want to add to all the events, to all businesses. It is not a tourism business, but all the events and infrastructure and the support of the people who are ready to create something locally. This is how it all cooperates together, showing that such a space can be created over 1 year. So looking at the outcomes of recent grant competitions organized by some companies almost simultaneously. So what do companies want? Companies support the projects which make an infrastructure complex, which makes an infrastructure of labor complex in the region, providing alternative creative industries for the people. And these industries require certain houses, and it creates new creative spaces which would be interesting for tourists. So such a simple connection. And one of the initiators of such a project was the university itself. Yeah, just a short comment. My colleagues mentioned very interesting cases, and Victoria mentioned that the motivation that they have is staff potential, and such examples can be presented by other corporate institutions when a necessity forces us to take part not only in the development of tourism, but also to create good infrastructure for life. And many others are following the same policies. When you have a lack of highly qualified staff and just well-qualified staff to attract employees to their plants, they create their conditions for health, for entertainment, and it is realized. So such an approach is very effective, and it is very demanded. But there is another approach as well, when a certain corporate structure has to deal with certain social burden to develop tourist infrastructure, and this approach works effectively as well. Olga Leonidovna said that they are realizing their own complex program, and objectively the concentration in the agenda of sustainable development is more on ecological part, ecological aspect related to green issues. This is like, well, it's logical considering where they are. But there are other examples which are connected with the culture, the history, and the preservation of values. For example, there was a downward initiative following the principle of state and society partnership. So this is another way of consolidation of resources when 4 regions of Russia connected by one aspect of identity, and they formed a project which nowadays involves more than 100 organizations. And so nowadays it's not only about the development of tourism, I'm talking about the Golden Ring, but actually about the promotion and preservation of cultural values, very different statues, monuments, history and culture. So I think it's actually a very clever, a very right question. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, talking about this meta brands, this is also kind of a trend nowadays. Like, for example, in Yenisseiskaya Sibir, in Krasnoyarsk Krai, silver necklace, and these brands can get a new life and a new move forward. Coming back to the question, like how regions can support ESG initiatives of the companies in tourist and eventful sphere, I would also like to look at this from the perspective of region, not only from the companies. So Julie is busy because of poor connection, but I would like to understand what region can do to support such ESG initiatives. Everybody is mentioning these are those measures of support, but Victoria, maybe you will share your experience. How do you work with regions? How do they support your initiative? What do you expect? Well, you know, actually in our eventful projects that we have and in infrastructural as well, we are actually concerned with the demand from the region. So if our tasks and their demands meet, so this is where we get the synergy. This is where the work goes. I mentioned different projects earlier. They are important for the regions themselves, and considering infrastructural projects, those were the regions who initiated an offer for us and asked us to do that. So when Christopher said that sometimes it is right to ask the regions what they want and to let them delegate certain projects to different companies. And so when their interests meet and they're the same, the fact is great. I remember the Agency of Strategic Initiatives started a competition like Open Your Russia, and we were supporting special nomination from Polis. There was special nomination from Polis. We were supporting the development of touristic routes, and it is understandable that there were routes which we are all accustomed to, like Dagestan, St. Pete, Leningradskaya Oblast, but there were also regions which were surprising because they were not far from touristic business, for example, Uralsky region, and we were happy to see some roads around Krasnoyarsk Krai, and we supported one of them together with Julie, and we even awarded our colleagues, and it was called like Legends about Siberia, which presupposed, let me remember, let me remind about Yenisseiskaya Sibir. So it wasn't only about Krasnoyarsk Krai, but also about Khakassia and Tiva, which are part of Yenisseiskaya Siberia. And I think that such kind of movement towards each other is the most demanded and efficient. Krai got a ready-made product supported by us within the framework of our cooperation, making the region more touristically attractive. So I think this is just both and way, and I think it is important for both regional and federal authorities to seize this. I don't know whether we should treat it as a strategy, because some are afraid of this word, but others see it as a very contemporary but too clever. But actually strategy means that you have to attract other consultants and money. But if a region is ready and understand what they want to do further, they just start moving towards business. The cooperation proves effective. I want to say that actually we do not have any material benefits for what we do, apart from the aims I mentioned. We don't actually have. But anyway, any support in terms of organization for people involved in this project, and they get a lot of benefits and get rid of limitations from our Ministry of Culture, for example, or talking about touristic routes, they get support from the administration of Krasnoyarski Krai. This is what we have enough in our lives. This is what we are working for. So I can't say that we want only money. These are business projects who want to get, who are mostly interested in materialistic benefits. But for touristic industry, for example, they are interested in grants as well to get some financial support, or probably from companies as well, as Natalie mentioned about mentioned grant competitions from big companies. So regions should understand that business is, I guess I can guarantee this, business doesn't expect any materialistic benefit from them, but in terms of organization, in terms of organizational pattern, when you understand and when you both understand each other and you have support from the government, that's more than enough. But for many regions, it lifts various administrative obstacles, which is the most important thing for which we're working and for what we are cooperating.
Thank you very much, Natalia. A short additional. How it is possible to incorporate in the logic of SDG is open just to the document. So are they actually, we may say, are they becoming a part of such kind of agenda system? Do they have the similar aims? For example, sustainable villages, cities. So is it possible just to propose any kind of, or to propose no initiative? So all the companies, they actually try to analyze, to supervise and monitor whether the region may take any kind of resources. And so we have lots of instruments just to, we have lots of instruments which regions may have just to implement any kind of ambitious goal. And definitely you need to show that this kind of proposal could be implemented with a close cooperation with the company, and the region has a kind of explanation why is it beneficial for company and for the region to work in a close cooperation. So that is a kind of like common, a simple logic of fundraising. So when we speak about the synchronization of the interests, so that is like a kind of instruction where, how to start, where to start, in what way we may cooperate, how we may intercept, in what kind of way, and what to prioritize in terms of the development of the region. So perhaps we are able just to cooperate and to launch new projects. Olga, can you say something about the interaction? Okay, I'm going just to be a part of this emotional debate. So it's extremely important just to state their power, authority, and the business. Anyway, if you want just to attract business into a certain sector, you need just to prioritize the interests of the state, and of course you need just to trust, have a kind of so there is a new law is being drafted. So we need just to implement into the new law the definition of sustainable development, and of course we have a certain framework with certain guidelines which we may use as a kind of a basis for the sustainable development. And the third point is strategy. Some actually companies or authorities, they are afraid of a bit of strategy, and the strategy of the low carbon for Russia has been already implemented. And perhaps many companies will start just to incorporate this kind of strategy into their charters, into their projects. But I have been working a lot with such kind of strategic development as in local and regional levels, but it's not that it's not enough just to ratify or just to accept that kind of strategy, but how to implement it, how to incorporate it. So that is vitally important just to incorporate in certain criteria of sustainable development, in particular into tourism industry. So that is a trend not only in our country but all over the world. Of course, we need just to implement these principles into the sustainable development. I have mentioned several times that we have several large-scale programs. So we are working in close cooperation with Moscow State University. So we actually have been creating kind of new standardized recommendation for sustainable development. I suppose that is an important question and the important vector for the future development. Christopher has touched a global issue, and so I would like just to narrow a bit their kind of discussion in terms of support of the regional authorities. So how to support regional initiatives in terms of the event industry. So that was a good example was mentioned about gastronomy. It's not fully actually implemented in terms of the usage of local culture, local cuisine when we organize different events in regions. If, for example, we have an example of the bottle of waters, for example, in Krasnoyarsk, we have a great amount of the different springs where we may actually enjoy local water rather than representatives of international companies. So in other words, we need to stimulate, to encourage local companies just to use their products. I would like to add one more point, like a kind of compulsory or mandatory requirement. Of course, we're not mandatory now, but still, I suppose it will be a positive asset if we are to include and incorporate requirements of ESG in the development, strategic development of the region. So we are approaching steadily to such kind of, I suppose, world, to such kind of environment, to such kind of process. But we need just to sum up and just to finalize what we have already actually debated about. I would like to ask speakers to give certain recommendation, to give a piece of advice. Should we follow such kind of route? Should we choose this track? So indeed, so definitely you need to consider and you need to think how just to work with such sustainable development agenda. So if we speak about them, so of course we may speak that it might be in terms of the financially, it may actually has a financial burden on the shoulder of the companies, but still, for example, if you speak of specific materials, washing powder, and it's not that easy just to work with the ESG. But it is a new trend and, of course, future for ESG definitely, despite of the perhaps the high expenses which companies will have to bear. So definitely we need just to say and to mention that sustainable development is the major strategy we need to follow. In a short-term perspective, we need to concentrate on the stabilization of our community and just to preserve our industries. In a long-term perspective, we need to build up the competence, our experience, to accumulate new experience, and just to go through the certain transformation and alteration. Of course, we are going to be back to international arena, and of course, that is we need to prioritize to make it like a strategic priority. As for the federal agenda, if we speak about local, about regional authorities, I'm speaking at the moment. Now it's as for ESG, it has become a kind of practical term. Christopher has mentioned today that we shouldn't be afraid of such kind of abbreviation like ESG. So that is a new trendy idea about the development of the region, how to harmonize needs and requirements, and how can we use this term in our work. And of course, such kind of process will give a competitive edge to the territory, to the region. So we need just to underscore that the city is within the territory of the parks, of the national reserves. So you know that if it is a kind of a park or reserve, we can't actually mine there. But of course, mining industries, extracting industries, of course, we need to admit that there is a kind of damage or harm for the nature, for the environment. But we are doing our best to provide a kind of help. For example, work in the form of the reforestation in a large scale, I might say. We think about the birds, about animals, which are within the territory, with the territories where our company actually works. So that is a kind of point where we may develop the tourism. So I strongly recommend tourism to have a look over there, to have a look of the way how we may work together, collaborate in terms of ESG. So at the beginning of our discussion, we actually recalled for a kind of brand. So that is clear. If you actually create a brand or a gender makes a brand, so if somebody else or if a gender makes, например, makes sustainable development or brand, so you need just to think in close cooperation with the ESG agenda. So you need to give a business a chance and just to encourage business to work with the ESG agenda to create a new image of the region. So that it is vitally important just to build up, to strengthen the relations with the business. Let them be environmentally responsible. So, and business actually may contribute greatly into the long-term development of the region. So that is, I suppose, essential, in particular in terms of the consolidation of low-carbon initiatives. So, of course, we are to be within the ESG agenda. So, to be or not to be, the answer is definitely to be. So, Natalia, thank you very much for a certain summary. So, we need to follow the principles of a circular economy. So, we need just to follow the principles of the global sustainable development. Without ESG, there will be no future in terms of the organization of the events, exhibitions, contests. Of course, we need to think and to consider how just to educate people, how just to create new projects, to launch new projects. So, and of course, we need to start this work and to start from ourselves. I suppose universities are of utmost importance for all of them. Thank you very much. I have a dream that university is going just to mark the final point here. I would like to underscore once again that ESG transformation is possible when this abbreviation of these three letters will be understandable for the population. Of course, when I have a kind of ask all the business activities just to attract students, I suppose, employees, it's order just to help educational institutions to explain regions, to explain authorities, to explain people why do we need it. Evgenia, thank you very much. We would like to finish our session, to end it. I would like to express gratitude for the participation. I would like just to thank you, organizers of the Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum, that they added such kind of important issue into the agenda of Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum, because it is not for tomorrow, it is for today. I would like to comment a bit. We will try to do our best. All the 7 questions which have been discussed here in the course of a session, we are going just to make a kind of instructions of the guidelines which all the planning just to work in such kind of direction. Thank you very much. Good night, good evening. It depends where you are. Thank you very much.
Открой Енисейскую Сибирь. Край уникальной географии и удивительной природы. От заснеженных склонов и бескрайних степей на юге до суровых пейзажей тундры и Арктики на севере. Снежная, яркая, дикая, но всегда очаровательная. Открой свое сердце Сибири. Открой Енисейскую Сибирь.
Норникель. Для достижения показателей улавливания серы на уровне